continue long in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel.
When no one else can understand me, when everything I do is wrong, you give me love and consolation. You give me hope to carry on. The wonder of you. And when you smile, the world is brighter. You touch my hand and I'm a king. Your kiss to me is worth a fortune. Your love to me is everything. And you're always there to lend. That's the wonder of you. I guess I'll never know the reason why you love me as you do. That's the wonder of you. Gotta write a classic. Gotta write it. Found it easy to annoy you, but you were different from the rest. And I loved you all the wrong ways. Now listen to me. Would the difference make it? Would it be a classic? I gotta send it right away. Gotta write a classic. Gotta write it in an edit. Babe, I'm an addict now. An addict for your love. Gotta write it down, send it right away. Gotta write a classic. Gotta write it in an attic. Babe, I'm an addict. An addict for your love. Now I'm living my life one day at a time. Since losing your love, I've been losing my mind. No more can I see the future so clear. And it's not what I mean not what it seems. I just keep living for dreams. And it's not what I mean it's not what it seems. I just keep living for dreams. Gotta write a classic. Should write it in an attic. Babe, I'm an addict now. I'm an addict for your love. Gotta write it down, set it right away. There's no word I say. Gotta write it down, set it right away. I'm out of control. On the first day of the 7th month, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. It is a day for you to sound the trumpets. As an aroma pleasing to the Lord, offer a burnt offering of 1 young bull with oil, with the ram 2/10, and with each of the 7 lambs 1/10. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you. These are in addition to the months with their grain offerings and drink offerings as specified. All of the Central Coast. They are food offerings presented to the Lord, a pleasing aroma. On the 10th day of this 7th month, hold a sacred assembly. You must deny yourselves and do no work. 7 male lambs a year old, all without defect. With the bull, offer a grain 2/10, and with each of the 7 lambs 1/10. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the sin offering for atonement and the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offerings. On the 15th day of the 7th month, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. Celebrate a festival to the Lord for 7 days. Present as an aroma pleasing to the Lord a food offering consisting of a burnt offering of 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all without defect. With each of the 13 bulls, offer a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of the finest flour mixed with olive oil. With each of the 2 rams, sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and drink offering. On the 2nd day, offer 12 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all without defect. With the bulls, rams, and lambs, offer their grain offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and their drink offerings. On the 3rd day, offer 11 bulls, 2 rams, and lambs. Offer their grain offerings and drink offerings according to the number specified. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering, with its grain offering and drink offering. On the 4th day, offer 10 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all without defect. With the bulls, rams, and lambs, offer their grain offerings and drink offerings according to the number specified. Include 1 male goat, and offer 9 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all without defect. With the bulls, rams, and lambs, offer their grain offerings and drink offerings according to the number specified. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its and drink offering. 8 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all without defect. With the bulls, rams, and lambs, offer their grain offerings and drink offerings according to the number specified. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and drink offering. On the 7th day, with the bulls, rams, and lambs, offer their grain offerings and drink offerings according to the number specified. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and drink offering. On the 8th day, hold a closing special assembly and do no regular work. Present as an aroma pleasing to the Lord a food offering consisting of a burnt offering of 1 bull, 1 ram, and 7 lambs a year old, all without defect. With the bull, the ram, and the lambs, offer their grain offerings and drink offerings according to the number specified. Include 1 male goat as a sin offering, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain offering and drink offering. In addition to what you vow and your freewill offerings, offer these grain offerings, drink offerings, and fellowship offerings.
Moses told the Israelites all that the Lord.
And we heard with the great song called Classic. Some great entertainment, different times of the day. So listen out throughout the day for the best programming on Old Time Radio, 2CM in Newcastle.
Commanded him.
Chapter 27. Now Moses and the elders of Israel commanded the people, saying, Keep the whole commandment that I command you today, and on the day you cross over, write on them all the words of this law, when you cross over to enter the land that the Lord your God is giving you, a land flowing with milk and honey, as the Lord the God of your fathers has promised you. And when you have crossed over the Jordan, you shall set up these stones, concerning which I command you to stones. You shall wield no iron tool on them. You shall build an altar to the Lord, uncut stones. And you shall offer burnt offerings on it to the Lord your there. And you shall rejoice before the Lord your God. And you shall write on the stones all the words of this law very plainly. Keep silence and hear, O Israel. This day you have become the people of the Lord your God. You shall therefore obey the voice of the Lord your God, keeping his commands and his statutes, which I command you today. That day Moses charged the people, saying, When you have crossed over the Jordan and Benjamin, and these shall stand on Mount Ebal for the curse, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And the Levites shall declare to all the men of Israel in a loud voice, Cursed be the man who makes a carved or cast metal image, an abomination to the Lord, a thing made by the hands of a craftsman, and sets it up in secret. And all the people shall answer and say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who dishonors his father or his mother. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who moves his neighbor's landmark. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who misleads a blind man on the road. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who perverts the justice due to the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who lies with his father's wife, because he has uncovered his father's nakedness. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who lies with any kind of animal. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who lies with his sister, whether the daughter of his father or the daughter of his mother. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who lies with his mother-in-law. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who strikes down his neighbor in secret. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who takes a bribe to shed innocent blood. And all the people shall say, Amen. Cursed be anyone who does not confirm the words of this law by doing them. And all the people shall say, Amen.
Then the word of the Lord came to Jehu, son of Hanani, concerning Baasha.
I lifted you up from the dust and appointed you ruler over my people Israel. But you followed the ways of Jeroboam and caused my people Israel to sin and to arouse my anger by their sins. So I am about to wipe out Baasha and his house, will feed on those who die in the country.
As for the other events of Baasha's reign, what he did and his achievements, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Baasha rested with his ancestors and was buried in Tirzah. and Elah his son succeeded him as king. Moreover, the word of the Lord came through the prophet Jehu, son of Hanani, to Baasha and his house, because of all the evil he had done in the eyes of the Lord, arousing his anger by the things he did, becoming like the house of Jeroboam, and also because he destroyed it. In the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, Elah, son of Baasha, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Tirzah 2 years. Zimri, one of his officials who had command of half his chariots, plotted against him. Elah was in Tirzah at the time, getting drunk in the home of Arza, who was in charge of the palace at Tirzah. Zimri came in, struck him down, and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah. Then he succeeded him as king. As soon as he began to reign and was seated on the throne, he killed off Baasha's whole family. He did not spare a single male, whether relative or friend. So Zimri destroyed the whole family of Baasha in accordance with the word of the Lord, spoken against Baasha through the prophet Jehu, because of all the sins Baasha and his son Elah had committed and had caused Israel to commit, so that they aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, by their worthless idols. As for the other events of Elah's reign and all he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? In the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, Zimri reigned in Tirzah 7 days. The army was encamped near Gibbethon, a Philistine town. When the Israelites in the camp heard that Zimri had plotted against the king and murdered him, they proclaimed Omri, the commander of the army, king over Israel that very day there in the camp. Then Omri and all the Israelites with him withdrew from Gibbethon and laid siege to Tirzah. Zimri saw that the city was taken. He went into the citadel of the royal palace and set the palace on fire around him. So he died because of the sins he had committed, doing evil in the eyes of the Lord and following the ways of Jeroboam and committing the same sin Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit. As for the other events of Zimri's reign and the rebellion he carried out, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Then the people of Israel were split into 2 factions. Half supported Tibni, son of Gineth, for king, and the other half supported Omri. But Omri's followers proved stronger than those of Tibni, son of Gineth. So Tibni died, and Omri became king. In the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, Omri became king of Israel, and he reigned 12 years, 6 of them in Tirzah. He bought the hill of Samaria from Shemer for 2 talents of silver and built a city on the hill, calling it Samaria after Shemer, the name of the former owner of the hill. But Omri did evil in the eyes of the Lord and sinned more than all those before him. He followed completely the ways of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, committing the same sin Jeroboam had caused Israel to commit, so that they aroused the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, by their worthless idols. As for the other events of Omri's reign, what he did and the things he achieved, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? Omri rested with his ancestors and was buried in Samaria, and Ahab, his son, succeeded him as king. In the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel, and he reigned in Samaria over Israel 22 years. Ahab, son of Omri, did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. He not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. He set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal that he built in Samaria. Ahab also made an Asherah pole and did more to arouse the anger of the Lord, the God of Israel, than did all the kings of Israel before him. In Ahab's time, Hiel of Bethel rebuilt Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of his firstborn son, Abiram, and he set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Segub, in accordance with the word of the Lord, spoken by Joshua, son of Nun.
Psalm 36, to the choirmaster of David, the servant of the Lord. Transgression speaks to the wicked deep in his heart. There is no fear of God before his eyes, for he flatters himself in his own eyes, that his iniquity cannot be found out and hated. The words of his mouth are trouble and deceit. He has ceased to act wisely and do good. He plots trouble while on his bed. He sets himself in a way that is not good. Like the mountains of God, your judgments are like the great deep. Man and beast you save, O Lord. How precious is your steadfast love, O God. The children of mankind take refuge in the shadow of your wing. They feast on the abundance of your house, and you drink from the river of lights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light do we see light. O continue your steadfast love to those who know you, and your righteousness to the upright of heart. Let not the foot of arrogance come upon me, nor the hand of the wicked. There the evildoers lie fallen, thrust down, unable to rise.
The word of the Lord came to me.
Son of man, set your face against Jerusalem and preach against the sanctuary. Prophesy against the land of Israel and say to her, this is what the Lord says, I am against you. I will draw my sword from its sheath and cut off from you both the righteous and the wicked. Because I am going to cut off the righteous and the wicked, my sword will be unsheathed against everyone from south to north. Then all people will know that I, the Lord, have drawn my sword from its sheath. It will not return. You shall say,
because of the news that is coming, every heart will melt and every hand go limp. Every spirit will become faint and every knee will be wet with urine.
it is coming. It will surely take place, declares the sovereign Lord.
The word of the Lord came to me.
Son of man, prophesy and say, this is what the Lord says. A sword, sharpened and polished, sharpened for the slaughter, polished to flash like lightning. Shall we rejoice in the scepter of my royal son? The sword despises every such stick. The sword is appointed to be polished, to be grasped with the hand. It is sharpened and polished, made ready for the hand of the slayer. Cry out and wail, son of man, for it is against my people. It is against all the princes of Israel. They are thrown to the sword along with my people. Therefore beat your breast. Testing will surely come. And what if even the scepter, which the sword despises, does not continue? Declares the sovereign Lord. So then, son of man, prophesy and strike your hands together. Let the sword strike twice, even 3 times. It is a sword for slaughter, a sword for great slaughter, closing in on them from every side, so that hearts may melt and the fallen be many. I have stationed the sword for slaughter at all their gates. Oh, it is made to flash like lightning. It is grasped for slaughter. Slash to the right, you sword, then to the left, wherever your blade is turned.
The word of the Lord came to me.
Son of man, mark out 2 roads for the sword of the king of Babylon to take, both starting from the same country. Make a signpost where the road branches off to the city. Mark out 1 road for the sword to come against Rabbah of the Ammonites, and another against Judah and fortify Jerusalem. For the king of Babylon will stop at the fork in the road, at the junction of the 2 roads, to seek. Into his right hand will come the lot for Jerusalem, where he is to set up battering rams, to give the command to slaughter, to sound the battle cry, to set battering rams against the gates, to build a ramp and to erect siege works. It will seem like a false omen to those who have sworn allegiance to him, but he will remind them of their guilt and take them captive. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you people have brought to mind your guilt by your open rebellion, revealing your sin that you do, because you have done this, you will be taken captive. You profane and wicked prince of Israel, whose day has come, whose time of punishment has reached its climax. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Take off the turban, remove the crown. It will not be as it was. The lowly will be exalted, and the exalted will be brought low. A ruin, a ruin. I will make it a ruin. The crown will not be restored until he to whom it rightfully belongs shall come. To him I will give it. And you, son of man, prophesy and say,
This is what the sovereign Lord says about the Ammonites and their insults.
a sword, drawn for the slaughter, polished to consume and to flash like lightning. Despite false visions concerning you and lying divinations about you, it will be laid on the necks of the wicked who are to be slain, whose day has come, whose time of punishment has reached its climax. Let the sword return to its sheath. In the place where you were created, in the land of your ancestry, I will judge you. I will pour out my wrath on you and breathe out my fiery anger against you. I will deliver you into the hands of brutal men, men skilled in destruction. You will be fuel for the fire. Your blood will be shed in your land. You will be remembered no more. For I, the Lord, have spoken.
Chapter 6. Where has your beloved gone, O most beautiful among women? Where has your beloved turned, that we may seek him with you? She. My beloved has gone down to his garden, to the beds of spices, to graze in the gardens, and to gather lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He grazes among the lilies. He. You are beautiful as Tirzah, my love, lovely as Jerusalem, awesome as an army with banners. Turn away your eyes from me, for they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats, leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes that have come up from the washing. All of them bear twins, not one among them has lost its young. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. There are 60 queens and 80 concubines, and virgins without number. My dove, my perfect one, is the only one of her mother, pure to her who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed, the queens and concubines also, and they praised her. Who is this who looks down like the dawn, beautiful as the moon, bright as the sun, awesome as an army with banners? She. I went down to the nut orchard to look at the blossoms of the valley, to see whether the vines had budded, whether the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I was aware, my desire set me among the chariots of my kinsman, a prince. Others. Return, return, O Shulamite, return, return, that we may look upon you. He. Why should you look upon the Shulamite as upon a dance before two armies? Psalm 66. To the choir master, a song, a psalm. Shout for joy to God, all the earth. Sing the glory of his name. Give to him glorious praise. Say to God, how awesome are your deeds. So great is your power that your enemies come cringing to you. All the earth worships you and sings praises to you. They sing praises to your name. Come and see what God has done. He is awesome in his deeds toward the children of man. He turned the sea into dry land, passed through the drought. There did we rejoice in him who rules by his might forever, whose eyes keep watch on the nation. Let not the rebellious exalt themselves. Bless our God, O peoples. Let the sound of his praise be heard, who has kept our soul among the living and has not let our feet slip. For you, O God, have tested us. You have tried us as silver is tried. You brought us into the net. You laid a crushing burden on our backs. You let men ride over our heads. We went through fire, place of abundance. I will come into your house with burnt offerings. I will perform my vows to you, that which my lips uttered and my mouth promised when I was in trouble. I will offer to you burnt offerings of fattened animals, with the smoke of the sacrifice of rams. I will make an offering of bulls and goats. Come and hear, all you who fear God, and I will tell what he has done for my soul. I cried to him with my mouth, and high praise was on my tongue. If I had cherished iniquity in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But truly God has listened. He has attended to the voice of my prayer. Blessed be God, because he has not rejected my prayer or removed his steadfast love from me.
Chapter 36. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan, Ada, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Bashemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebajoth. And Ada bare to Esau Eliphaz, his sons and his daughters, and all the persons of his house, and his cattle, and all his beasts, and all his substance, which he had got in the land of Canaan, of their cattle. Thus dwelt Esau in Omar, Zepho, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Reuel, Nahath, and Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Bashemath, Esau's wife. And these were the sons of Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife. And she bare to Esau Jeush, and Jaalam, and Korah. These were dukes of the sons of Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Ada. And these are the sons of Reuel, Esau's son, Duke Nahath, Duke Zerah, Duke Shammah, Duke Mizah. These are the dukes that came of Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Bashemath, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Aholibama, Esau's wife, Duke Jeush, Duke Jaalam, Duke Korah. These were the dukes that came of Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these are their dukes. These are the sons of Seir the Horite, who inhabited the land, Lotan, and Shobal, and Zibeon, and Anah, and Dishon, and Ezer, and Dishan. These are the dukes of the Horites, the children of Seir in the land of Edom. And the children of Lotan were Hori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. And the children of Shobal were these, Alban, and Manahath, and Ebo, Shepho, and Onam. And these are the children of Zibeon, both Ajah and Anah. This was that Anah that found the mules in the wilderness as he fed the asses of Zibeon, his father. And the children of Anah were these, Dishon, and Aholibama, the daughter of Anah. And these are the children of Dishon, Hemdan, and Eshban, and Ithran, and Kiran. The children of Ezer are these, Bilhan, and Zaavan, and Achan. The children of Dishan are these, Uz, and Aaron. These are the dukes that came of the Horites, Duke Lotan, Duke Shobal, Duke Zibeon, Duke Anah, Duke Dishon, Duke Ezer, Duke Dishan. These are the dukes that came of Hori among their dukes in the land of Seir. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. And Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinhabah. And Bela died, and Jobab, the son of Zerah of Bozrah, reigned in his stead. And Jobab died, and Husham of the land of Temani reigned in his stead. And Husham died, and Hadad, the son of Bedad, who smote Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his stead. And the name of his city was Avith. And Hadad died, and Samlah of Masrekah reigned in his stead. And Samlah died, and Saul of Rehoboth by the river reigned in his stead. And Saul died, and Baal-Hanan the son of Akbor reigned in his stead. And Baal-Hanan the son of Akbor died, and Hadar reigned in his stead. And the name of his city was Payu, and his wife's name was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mazahab. And these are the names of the dukes that came of Esau, according to their families, after their places, by their names. Duke Tim, Duke Alva, Duke Jetheth, Duke Aholibama, Duke Elah, Duke Pinon, Duke Kenaz, Duke Teman, Duke Mibzar, Duke Magdiel, Duke Iram. These be the dukes of Edom, according to their habitations in the land of their possession. He is Esau, the father of the Edomites.
Chapter 13. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, When a person has on the skin of his body a swelling or an eruption or a spot, and it turns into a case of leprous disease on the skin of his body, then he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons the priests, and the priest shall examine the disease area on the skin of his body. And if the hair in the diseased area has turned white, and the disease appears to be deeper than the skin of his body, it is a case of leprous disease. When the priest has examined him, he shall pronounce him unclean. But if the spot is white in the skin of his body, and appears no deeper than the skin, and the hair in it has not turned white, the priest shall shut the diseased person for 7 days. And the priest shall examine him on the 7th day. And if in his eyes the disease is checked, and the disease has not spread in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up for another 7 days. And the priest shall examine him again on the seventh day. And if the disease area has faded, and the disease has not spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. It is only an eruption. He shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the eruption spreads in the skin after he has shown himself to the priest for his cleansing, he shall appear again before the priest. And the priest shall look, and if the eruption is spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous disease. When a man is afflicted with a leprous disease, he shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall look, and if there is a white swelling in the skin that has turned the hair white, and there is raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic leprous disease in the skin of his body, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. He shall not shut him up, for he is unclean. And if the leprous disease breaks out in the skin, so that the leprous disease covers all the skin of the diseased person from head to foot, so far as the priest can see, then the priest shall look, and if the leprous disease has covered all his body, he shall pronounce him clean of the disease. It has all turned white, and he is clean. But when raw flesh appears on him, he shall be unclean. And the priest shall examine the raw flesh and pronounce him unclean. Raw flesh is unclean, for it is a leprous disease. But if the raw flesh recovers and turns white again, then he shall come to the priest, and the priest shall examine him. And if the disease has turned white, then the priest shall pronounce the diseased person clean. He is clean. If there is in the skin of one's body a boil, and it heals, and in the place of the boil there comes a white swelling or a reddish white spot, then it shall be shown to the priest. And the priest shall look, and if it appears deeper than the skin, and its hair has turned white, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. Deeper than the skin, but has faded, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it spreads in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a disease. But if the spot remains in one place and does not spread, it is the scar of the boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or when the body has a burn on its skin, and the raw flesh of the burn becomes a spot, reddish white or white, the priest shall examine it. And if the hair in the spot has turned white, and it appears deeper than the skin, then it is a leprous disease. It has broken out in the burn, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a case of leprous disease. But if the priest examines it, and there is no white hair in the spot, and it is no deeper than the skin, but has faded, the priest shall shut him up 7 days, and the priest shall examine him the 7th day. If it is spreading in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a case of leprous disease. But if the spot remains in one place and does not spread in the skin, but has faded, it is a swelling from the burn, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is the scar of the burn. When a man or woman has a disease on the head or the beard, the priest shall examine the disease. And if it appears deeper than the skin, and the hair in it is yellow and thin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an itch, a leprous disease of the head or the beard, and there is no black hair in it. Then the priest shall shut up the person with the itching disease for 7 days. And on the 7th day the priest shall examine the disease. If the itch has not spread, and there is in it no yellow hair, and the itch appears to be no deeper than the skin, then he shall shave himself, but the itch he shall not shave. And the priest shall shut up the person with the itching disease for another 7 days. Then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. But if the itch spreads in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall examine him, and if the itch has spread in the skin, the priest need not seek for the yellow hair. He is unclean. But if in his eyes the itch is unchanged, and black hair has grown in it, the itch is healed, and he is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. When a man or a woman has spots on the skin of the body, white spots, the priest shall look, and if the spots on the skin of the body are of a dull white, it is leukoderma that has broken out in the skin. He is clean. If a man's hair falls out from his head, he is bald. He is clean. And if a man's hair falls out from his forehead, he has baldness of the forehead, he is clean. But if there is on the bald head or the bald forehead a reddish white diseased area, it is a leprous disease breaking out on his bald head or his bald forehead. Then the priest must pronounce him unclean. His disease is on his head. The leprous person who has the disease shall wear torn clothes, and let the hair of his head hang loose, and he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, Unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. When there is a case of leprous disease in a garment, whether a woolen or a linen garment, in warp or woof of linen or wool, or in a skin, or in anything made of skin, if the disease is greenish or reddish in the garment, or in the skin, or in the warp, or the woof, or in any article made of skin, it is a case of leprous disease, and it shall be shown to the priest. And the priest shall examine the disease, and shut up that which has the disease for 7 days. Then he shall examine the disease on the 7th day. If the disease has spread in the garment, in the warp, or the woof, and he shall burn the garment, or the warp, or the woof, the wool, or the linen, or any article made of skin that is diseased, for it is a persistent leprous disease. It shall be burned in the fire. And if the priest examines, and if the disease has not spread in the garment, in the warp, or the woof, or in any article made of skin, then the priest shall command that they wash the thing in which is the disease, and he shall shut it up for another 7 days. And the priest shall examine the diseased thing after it has been washed. And if the appearance of the diseased area has not changed, though the disease has not spread, it is unclean. You shall burn it in the fire, whether the rot is on the back or on the front. But if the priest examines, and if the diseased area has faded after it in the warp or the woof, or in any article made of skin, it is spreading. You shall burn with fire whatever has the disease. But the garment, or the warp, or the woof, or any article made of skin from which the disease departs when you have washed it, shall then be washed a second time and be clean. This is the law for a case of leprous disease in a garment of wool or linen, either in the warp or the woof, or in any article made of skin, to determine whether it is clean or unclean.
She came to test Solomon with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a very great caravan, with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon, and the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. She said to the king,
The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth, you have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your people must be. How happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel. Because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness.
and she gave them 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices and precious stones. Never again were so many spices brought in as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Hiram's ships brought gold from Ophir, and from there they brought great cargoes of almug wood and precious stones. The king used the almug wood to make supports for the temple of the Lord, and for the royal palace, and to make harps and lyres for the musicians. So much almug wood has never been imported or seen since that day. King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all she desired and asked for, besides what he had given her out of his royal bounty. Then she left and returned with her retinue to her own country. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants and traders and from all the Arabian kings and the governors of the territories. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold, with 3 minas of gold in each shield. The king put them in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then the king made a great throne, inlaid with ivory and overlaid with fine gold. The throne had 6 steps, and its back had a rounded top. On both sides of the seat were armrests, with a lion standing beside each of them. 12 lions stood on the 6 steps, one at either end of each step. Nothing like it had ever been made for any other kingdom. All King Solomon's goblets were gold, and all the household articles in the palace of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. Nothing was made of silver, because silver was considered of little value in Solomon's days. The king had a fleet of trading ships at sea, along with the ships of Hiram. Once every 3 years it returned, carrying gold, silver, and ivory, and apes and baboons. King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon. Gold, robes, weapons, and spices, and horses and mules. Solomon accumulated chariots and horses. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horses, which he kept in the chariot cities, and also with him in Jerusalem. The king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as plentiful as sycamore fig trees in the foothills. Solomon's horses were imported from Egypt and from Kiwi. The royal merchants purchased them from Kiwi at the current price. They imported a chariot from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, for 150. They also exported them.
Since we have these promises, dear friends, let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit, perfecting holiness out of reverence for God. Appointed no one. I do not say this to condemn you. I have said before that you have such a place in our hearts. I take great pride in you. I am greatly encouraged. In all our troubles, my joy knows no bounds. For when we came into Macedonia, this body of ours had no rest. But we were harassed at every turn, conflicts on the outside, fears within. But God, who comforts the downcast, comforted us by the coming of Titus, and not only by his coming, but also by the comfort you had given him. He told us about your longing for me, your deep sorrow, your ardent concern for me, so that my joy was greater than ever. Even if I caused you sorrow by my letter, I do not regret it. Though I did regret it, I see that my letter hurt you, but only for a little while. Yet now I am happy, not because you were made sorry, but because your sorrow led you to repentance. For you became sorrowful as God intended, and so were not harmed in any way by us. Godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret, but worldly sorrow brings death. See what this godly sorrow has produced in you. What earnestness, what eagerness to clear yourselves, what indignation, what alarm, what longing, what concern, what readiness to see justice done. At every point you have proved yourselves to be innocent in this matter. So even though I wrote to you, you could see for yourselves how devoted to us you are. By all this we are encouraged. In addition to our own encouragement, we were especially delighted to see how happy Titus was, because his spirit has been refreshed by all of you. I had boasted to him about you, and you have not embarrassed me. But just as everything we said to you was true, so our boasting about you to Titus has proved to be true as well. And his trembling, I am glad I can have complete confidence in you.
The Book of Titus.
A servant of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ, to further the faith of God's elect and their knowledge of the truth that leads to godliness, in the hope of eternal life, which God, who does not lie, promised before the beginning of time, and which now at his appointed season he has brought to light through the preaching entrusted to me by the command of God our Savior. To Titus, my true son, grace and peace from God the Father and Christ left unfinished, and appoint elders in every town as I directed you. An elder must be blameless, faithful to his wife, a man whose children believe and are not open to the charge of being wild and disobedient. Since an overseer manages God's household, he must be blameless, not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not given to drunkenness, not violent, not pursuing dishonest gain. Rather, he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, who is self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. He must hold firmly to the trustworthy message as it has been taught, so that he can encourage others by sound doctrine and refute those who oppose it. For there are many rebellious people, full of meaningless talk and deception, especially those of the circumcision group. They must be silenced, because they are disrupting whole households by teaching things they ought not to teach, and that for the sake of dishonest gain. One of Crete's own prophets has said it. Cretans are always liars, evil brutes, lazy gluttons. He has surely told the truth. Therefore rebuke them sharply, so that they will be sound in the faith and will pay no attention to Jewish myths or to the merely human commands of those who reject the truth. To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are corrupted and do not believe, not to know God, but by their actions they deny him. They are detestable, disobedient, and unfit for doing anything good.
Chapter 22. And the children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was sore afraid of the people because of the Moabites at that time. He sent messengers, therefore, unto Balaam the son of Beor over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people, for thou art too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I wot that he whom thou blessest is blessed, and he whom thou cursest is cursed. And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination in their hand. And they came unto Balaam, and spake unto him the words of Balak. And he said unto them, Lodge here this night. And God came unto Balaam, and said, What men are these with thee? And Balaam said unto God, Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab, hath sent unto me, saying, Behold, there is a people come out of Egypt, which covereth the face of the earth. Come now, curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them, and drive them out. And God said unto Balaam, Thou shalt not go with them. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. And Balaam rose up in the morning, and said unto the princes of Balak, Get you into your land, for the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balak, and said, Balaam refuseth to come with us. And Balak sent yet again princes more, and more honorable than they. And they came to Balaam, and said to him, Thus saith Balak the son of Zippor, Let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming unto me, for I will promote thee unto very great honor, and I will do whatsoever thou sayest unto me. Come therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, If Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. Now therefore I pray you, tarry ye all here this night, that I may know what the Lord will say unto me more. And God came unto Balaam at night, and said unto him, If the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. And went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his two servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and the ass turned aside, a wall being on this side, and a wall on that side. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself unto the wall, and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further, and stood in a narrow place where was no way to turn neither to the right hand or to the left. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, What have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, Because thou hast mocked me. I would there were a sword in mine hand, for now would I kill thee. And the ass said unto Balaam, Am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever one? And he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. He bowed down his head, and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, Wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. And the ass saw me, and turned from me. Balaam said unto the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knew not that thou stoodest in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displease thee, I will get me back again. And the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men, but only the word that I shall speak unto thee, that thou shalt speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. And when Balak heard that Balaam was come, he went out to meet him unto a city of Moab, which is in the border of Arnon, which is in the utmost coast. And Balak said unto Balaam, Did I not earnestly send unto thee to call thee? Wherefore camest thou not unto me? Am I not able indeed to promote thee to honor? And Balaam said unto Balak, Lo, I am come unto thee. Have I now any power at all to say anything? The word that God putteth in my mouth, that shall I speak. Sheep, and sent to Balaam and to the princes that were with him. And it came to pass on the morrow that Balak took Balaam and brought him up into the high places of Baal, that thence he might see the utmost part of the people.
These were the sons of David born to him. The second, Daniel, the son of Abigail, of Carmel. The third, Absalom, the son of Maacah, daughter of Talmai, king. The fifth, Shephatiah, the son of Abital. And the sixth, Ithream, by his wife Eglah. These 6 were born to David in Jerusalem 33 years, and these were the children born to him there: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, and Solomon. These 4 were by Bathsheba, daughter of Amiel. There were also Ibhar, Elishua, Eliphalet, Noga, Nepheg, Japhiah, Elishama, Eli. All these were the sons of David, besides his sons by his concubines, and Tamar was their sister. Solomon's son was Rehoboam, Abijah his son, Asa his son, Jehoshaphat his son, Jehoram his son, Ahaziah his son, Joash his son, Amaziah his son, Azariah his son, Jotham his son, Ahaz his son, Hezekiah his son, Manasseh his son, Ammon his son, Josiah his son. The sons of Josiah: Johanan the firstborn, Jehoiakim the second son, Zedekiah the third, Shallum the fourth. The successors of Jehoiakim: Jehoiakim his son, and Zedekiah. The descendants of Jehoiakim the captive: Shealtiel his son, Malchiram, Pedaiah, Shenazar, Jechemiah, Hoshema, and Nedabiah. The sons of Pedaiah: Zerubbabel and Shimei. The sons of Zerubbabel: Meshullam and Hananiah. Shelomith was their leader. There were also 5 others: Pashua, Ohel, Berechiah, Hasadiah, and Jushab-Hesed. The descendants of Hananiah, Pelatiah, and Jeshiah, and the sons of Rephaiah, of Arnon, of Obadiah, and of Shechaniah, Hattush, Igal, Bariah, Neariah, and Shaphat, 6 in all. The sons of Neariah, Elioenai, Hizkiah, and Azrikam, 3 in all. The sons of Elioenai, Hodaviah, Eliashib, Hilaiah, Akub, Johanan, Delaiah, and Hunani, 7 in all.
Woe to that wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards, to the fading flower, his glorious beauty set on the head of a fertile valley, to that city, the pride of those laid low by wine. See, the Lord has one who is full and strong, like a hailstorm and a destructive wind, like a driving rain and a flooding downpour. He will throw it forcefully to the ground. That wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards, figs ripe before harvest. As soon as people see them and take them in hand, they swallow them. In that day, the Lord Almighty will be a glorious crown, a beautiful wreath for the remnant of his people. He will be a spirit of justice to those who sit in judgment, a source of strength to those who turn back to battle at the gates, and prophets stagger from fear and are befuddled with wine. They reel from beer. They stagger when seeing visions. They stumble when rendering decisions. All the tables are covered with vomit, and there is not a spot without filth.
Who is it he is trying to teach? To whom is he explaining his message? To children weaned from their milk? To those just taken from the breast?
For it is, do this, do that, a rule for this, a rule for that, a little here, a little there.
Very well then, with foreign lips and strange tongues, God will speak to this people, to whom he said,
"This is the resting place. Let the weary rest."
And
"This is the place of repose."
will become, do this, do that. A rule for this, a rule for that. They will be injured and snared and captured. Therefore,
We have entered into a covenant with death. With the realm of the dead, we have made an agreement. When an overwhelming scourge sweeps by, it cannot touch us, for we have made a lie our refuge and falsehood our hiding place.
so this is what the sovereign Lord says.
"See, I lay a stone in Zion. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the plumb line. Hail will sweep away your refuge, the lie, and water will overflow your hiding place. Your covenant with death will be annulled. Your agreement with the realm of the dead will not stand. When the overwhelming scourge sweeps by, you will be beaten down by it. As often as it comes, it will carry you away. Morning after morning, by day and by night, it will sweep through."
The understanding of this message will bring sheer terror. The bed is too short to stretch out on. The blanket too narrow to wrap around you. The Lord will rise up as he did at Mount Perizim. He will arouse himself as in the valley of Gibeon to do his work, his strange work, and perform his task, his alien task. Now, stop your mocking, or your chains will become heavier. The Lord Almighty has told me of the destruction decreed against the whole land. Listen and hear my voice. Pay attention and hear what I say.
When farmers plow for planting, do they plow continually? Do they keep on breaking up and working the soil? When they have leveled the surface, do they not sow caraway and scatter cumin? Do they not plant wheat in its place, barley in its plot, and spelt in its field? Their God instructs them and teaches them the right way. Caraway is not threshed with a sledge, nor is a cartwheel rolled over cumin. Caraway is beaten out with a rod, and cumin with a stick. Grain must be ground to make bread, so one does not go on threshing it forever. The wheels of a threshing cart may be rolled over it, but one does not use horses to grind grain. All this also comes from the Lord Almighty, whose plan is wonderful, whose wisdom is magnificent.
Chapter 8. Now Elisha had said to the woman whose son he had restored to life, Arise and depart with your household, and sojourn wherever you can, for the Lord has called for a famine, and it will come upon the land for 7 years. So the woman arose and did according to the word of the man of God. She went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Philistines 7 years. And at the end of the 7 years, when the woman returned from the land of the Philistines, she went to appeal to the king for her house and her land. Now the king was talking with Gehazi, the servant of the man of God, saying, Tell me all the great things that Elisha has done. And while he was telling the king how Elisha had restored the dead to life, behold, the woman whose son he had restored to life appealed to the king for her house and her land. And Gehazi said, My lord, O king, here is the woman, and here is her son whom Elisha restored to life. And when the king asked the woman, she told him. So the king appointed an official for her, saying, Restore all that was hers, together with all the produce of the fields from the day that she left the land until now. Now Elisha came to Damascus. And Hadad the king told him, The man of God has come here. The king said to Hazael, Take a present with you, and go to meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord through him, saying, Shall I recover from this sickness? So Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him, all kinds of goods of Damascus, 40 camel loads. When he came and stood before him, he said, Your son Benhadad, king of Syria, has sent me to you, saying, Shall I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, Go, say to him, You shall certainly recover. But the Lord has shown me that he shall certainly die. And he fixed his gaze and stared at him until he was embarrassed. And the man of God wept. And Hazael said, Why does my lord weep? He answered, Because I know the evil that you will do to the people of Israel. You will set on fire their fortresses, and you will kill their young men with the sword, and dash in pieces their little ones, and rip open their pregnant women. And Hazael said, What is your servant, who is but a dog, that he should do this great thing? Elisha answered, The Lord has shown me that you are to be king over Syria. Then he departed from Elisha, and came to his master, who said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he answered, He told me that you would certainly recover. But the next day he took the bedcloth and dipped it in water, and spread it over his face till he died. And Hazael became king in his place. In the 5th year of Joram the son of Ahab, king of Israel, when Jehoshaphat was king of Judah, Jehoram the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. And he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Yet the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah for the sake of David his servant, since he promised to give a lamp to him and to his sons forever. In his days Edom revolted from the rule of Judah, and set up a king of their own. Then Joram passed over to Zaire with all his chariots, and rose by night, and he and his chariot commanders struck the Edomites who had surrounded him, but his army fled home. So Edom revolted from the rule of Judah to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. Now the rest of the acts of Joram, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Joram slept with his fathers and was buried with his fathers in the city of David, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his place. In the 12th year of Joram the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Ahaziah the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah. She was a granddaughter of Omri, king of Israel. He also walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was son-in-law to the house of Ahab. He went with Joram the son of Ahab to make war against Hazael Syria at Ramoth Gilead, and the Syrians wounded Joram. And King Joram returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds that the Syrians had given him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael king of Syria. And Ahaziah the son of Jehoram king of Judah went down to see Joram the son of Ahab sick.
The word of the Lord came to me.
Son of man, set your face against the Ammonites and prophesy against, because you said, they will set up their camps and pitch their tents among you. They will eat your fruit and drink your milk. I will turn Rabbah into a pasture for camels and Ammon into a resting place for sheep. Then you will know that I am the Lord. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you have clapped your hands and stamped your feet, rejoicing with all the malice of your heart against the land of Israel, therefore I will stretch out my hand against you and give you as plunder to the nations. I will wipe you out from among the nations and exterminate you from the countries. I will destroy you, and you will know that I am the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because Moab and Seir said,
Look, the house of Judah has become like all the other nations.
therefore I will expose the flank of Moab, beginning at its frontier towns, Beth Jeshimoth, Baal Meon, and Kiriathaim, the glory of that land. I will give Moab, along with the Ammonites, to the people of the east as a possession, so that the Ammonites will not be remembered among the nations. And I will inflict punishment on Moab. Then they will know that I am the Lord.
This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because Edom took revenge on the house of Judah and became very guilty by doing so. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says.
I will stretch out my hand against Edom and kill its people and their animals. I will lay it waste, and from Teman to Dedan they will fall by the sword. I will take vengeance on Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they will deal with Edom in accordance with my
Sovereign Lord says, because the Philistines acted in vengeance and took revenge malice in their hearts, and with ancient hostility sought to destroy Judah, therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says.
I am about to stretch out my hand against the Philistines, and I will wipe out the Kerethites and destroy those remaining along the coast. I will carry out great vengeance on them and punish them in my wrath. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I take vengeance on them.
When it was decided that we would sail for Italy, Paul and some other prisoners were handed over to a centurion named Julius, who belonged to the imperial regiment, and we Aristarchus, a Macedonian from Thessalonica, was with us. The next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius, in kindness to Paul, allowed him to go to his friends so they might provide for his needs. From there we put out to sea again and passed to the lee of Cyprus because the winds were against us. When we had sailed across the open sea off the coast of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we landed at Myra and Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing for Italy and put us on board. We made slow headway for many days and had difficulty arriving off Cnidus. When the wind did not allow us to hold our course, we sailed to the Crete, opposite Salmone. We moved along the coast with difficulty and came to a place called Fair Havens, near the town of Lacia. Much time had been lost, and sailing had already become...
Men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo, and to our own lives also.
But the centurion, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and of the owner of the ship. Since the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the majority decided that we should sail on. hoping to reach Phoenix and winter there. This was a harbor in Crete facing both south. They saw their opportunity. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the Nor'easter swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed, afraid they would run around on the sandbars of Syrtis, they lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars, after they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said,
Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island.
On the 14th night, we were still being driven across the Adriatic Sea, when about midnight the sailors sensed they were approaching land. They took sounding and found it was 90 feet deep. Fearing that we would be dashed against the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for daylight. In an attempt to escape from the ship, the sailors let the lifeboat down into the sea, pretending they were going to lower some anchors from the bow. Then Paul said to the centurion and the soldiers,
Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved.
So the soldiers cut the ropes that held the lifeboat and let it drift away. Just before dawn, Paul urged them all to eat.
For the last 14 days, you have been in constant suspense and have gone without food. You haven't eaten anything. Now I urge you to take some food. You need it to survive. Not one of you will lose a single hair from his head.
After he said this, he took some bread and gave thanks to God and fed them all. Then he broke it and began to eat. They were all encouraged and ate some food themselves. Together, there were 276 of us on board. When they had eaten as much as they wanted, they lightened the ship by throwing the grain into the sea. When daylight came, they did not recognize the land, but they saw a bay with a sandy beach, where they decided to run the ship aground if they could. Cutting loose the anchors, they left them in the sea and at the same time untied the ropes that held the rudders. Then they hoisted the foresail to the wind and made for the beach. But the ship struck a sandbar and ran aground. The bow struck fast and would not move, and the stern was broken to pieces by the pounding of the surf. The soldiers planned to kill the prisoners to prevent any of them from swimming away and escaping. But the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life and kept them from carrying out their plan. He ordered those who could swim to jump overboard first and get to land. The rest were to get there on planks or on other pieces of the ship. In this way, everyone reached land safely.
Chapter 25. These also are Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah king of Judah copied. It is the glory of gold. Take away the dross from the silver, and the smith as material for a vessel. Take away the wicked from the prey told, come up here, than to be put lower in the presence of a noble. What your eyes have seen, do not hastily bring into court. For what will you do in the end when your neighbor puts you to shame? Argue your case with your neighbor himself, and do not reveal another's secret, lest he who hears you bring shame upon you, and your ill repute have no end. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is a wise reprover. Send him, he refreshes the soul of his masters. Like clouds, a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue will break a bone. If you have found honey, eat only enough for you, lest you have your fill of it and vomit it. Let your foot be seldom in your neighbor's house, lest he have his fill of you and hate you. A man who bears false witness against his neighbor is like a war club, or a sword, or a sharp arrow. Trusting in a treacherous man is like one who takes off a garment on a cold day, and like vinegar on soda. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat, And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink. For you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. The north wind brings forth rain, and a backbiting tongue angry looks. It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. Like cold water to a thirsty soul gives way before the wicked. It is not good to eat much honey, nor is it glorious to seek one's own glory. A man without self-control is like a city broken into and led.
But behold, they will not. They will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee. And the Lord said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. Moses fled from before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. Or unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe also these two signs, neither hearken unto thy voice, that thou shalt take of the water of the river, and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which thou takest out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moses said unto the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant, but I am slow of speech, and of a slow tongue. And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou send. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee. And when he see thee with thy mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do. And he shall be thy spokesman unto the people. And he shall be, even he, shall be to thee instead of a mouth, and thou shalt be to him instead of God. And thou shalt take this rod in thine hand, wherewith thou shalt do signs. And Moses went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law, and said unto him, Let me go, I pray thee, and return unto my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, Go in peace. And the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, Go, return into Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. And Moses took his wife and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. And the Lord said unto Moses, When thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh which I have put in thine hand. But I will harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. And it came to pass by the way in the inn, that the Lord met him, and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone, and cut off the foreskin of her son, and cast it at his feet, and said, Surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go. Then she said, A bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. And the Lord said to Aaron, Go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went, and met him in the mount of God, and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spake all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they heard that the Lord had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped.
Now the Lord had said to Moses,
I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. And when he does, he will drive you out completely. Tell the people that men and women alike.
The Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed toward the people, and Moses himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people. So Moses said,
This is what the Lord says. About midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on the throne to the firstborn son of the female slave who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. There will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again. But among the Israelites, not a dog will bark at any person or animal. Then you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. Will come to me, bowing down before me and saying, Go, you and all the people who follow you. After that, I will.
Then Moses, hot with anger, left Pharaoh. All these wonders before Pharaoh. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go out of his country. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold and tents. But the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together, and quarreling arose between Abram's herders and the herders of Lot. Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abram said to Lot,
Let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left.
Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt toward Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. To Abram, after Lot had parted from him,
Look around from where you are, to the north and south, to the east and west. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you.
So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord.
Chapter 21. And the Lord said to Moses, Speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, No one shall make himself unclean for the dead among his people, except for his closest relatives, self unclean. He shall not make himself unclean as a husband among his people, and so profane himself. They shall not make bald patches on their heads, nor shave off, and not profane the name of their God, for they offer the Lord's food offerings, the bread of their God. Therefore they shall be holy. They shall not marry a prostitute or a woman who has been defiled, neither shall they marry a woman divorced. Be holy to you, for I, the Lord, who sanctify you, am holy. And the daughter of any priest, if she profanes herself by whoring, profanes her father. she shall be burned with fire. The priest who is chief among his brothers, on whose head the anointing oil is poured, and who has been consecrated to wear the garments, shall not let the hair of his head hang loose, nor tear his clothes. He shall not go into any dead bodies, nor make himself unclean, even for his father or for his mother. The anointing oil of his God is on him. I am the Lord. And he shall take a wife in her virginity, a widow, or a divorced woman, or a woman who has been defiled, or a prostitute. These he shall not wife a virgin of his own people, that he may not profane his offspring among his people, for I am the Lord who sanctifies him. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron, saying, None of your offspring throughout their generations who has a blemish may approach to offer the bread of his God. For no one who has a blemish shall draw near, a man blind or lame, or one who has a mutilated face, or a limb too long, or a man who has an injured foot or an injured hand, or a hunchback, or a dwarf, or a man with a defect in his sight, or an itching disease, or scabs, or crushed testicles. No man of the offspring of Aaron the priest who has a blemish shall come near to offer the Lord's food offerings. Since he has a blemish, he shall not come near to offer the bread of his God. He may eat the bread of his God, both of the most holy and of the holy things, but he shall not through the veil or approach the altar, because he has a blemish, that he may not profane my sanctuaries, for I am the Lord who sanctifies them. So Moses spoke to Aaron and to his sons and to all the people of Israel. Chapter 9. Now it is superfluous for me to write to you about the ministry, for if you are not ready, we would be humiliated, to say nothing of you, for being so confident. So I thought it necessary to urge the brothers to go on ahead of you and arrange for the gift you have promised, so that it may be ready as a willing gift, not as an exaction. The point one must give as he has made up his mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. As it is written, He has distributed freely, He has given to the poor, His righteousness endures forever. He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way for all your generosity, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God. For the ministry of this service is not only supplying the needs of the saints, but is also overflowing in many thanksgivings to God. By their approval of this service, they will glorify God because of your submission, flowing from your confession of the gospel of Christ, and the generosity of your contribution for them and for all others, while they long for you and pray for you because of the surpassing grace of God upon you. Thanks be to God for his inexpressible gift.
Listen, you heavens, and I will speak. Hear, you earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teaching fall like rain, and my words descend like dew, like showers. Proclaim the name of the Lord. Oh, praise the greatness of our God. He is the rock. His works are perfect, and all his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is he. They are corrupt and not his children. To their shame they are a warped and crooked generation. Is this the way you repay the Lord, you who made you, formed you? Remember the days of old. Consider the generations long past. Ask your father and he will tell you, your elders and they will explain to you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided all the human race, he set up boundaries for the peoples according to the number of the sons of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob his allotted inheritance. In a desert land he found him, in a barren and howling waste. He shielded him and cared for him. He guarded him as the apple of his eye, like an eagle that stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, that spreads its wings to catch them and carries them aloft. The Lord alone led him. No foreign god was with him. He made him ride on the heights of the land and fed him with the fruit of the fields. He nourished him with honey from the rock, and with oil from the flinty crag, with curds and milk from herd and flock, and with fattened lambs and goats, with choice rams of Bashan, and the finest kernels of wheat. You drank the foaming blood of the grape. Jeshurun grew fat and kicked, filled with food. He became heavy and sleek. He abandoned the God who made him and rejected the rock, his savior. They made him jealous with their foreign gods and angered him with their detestable idols. They sacrificed to demons, which are not gods, gods they had not known, gods that recently appeared, gods your ancestors did not fear. You deserted the rock who bore you. You forgot the God who gave you birth. The Lord saw this and rejected them because he was angered by his sons and daughters. I will hide my face from them, he said, and see what their end will be. For they are a perverse generation, children who are unfaithful. They made me jealous by what is no God and angered me with their worthless idols. I will make them envious by those who are not a people. I will make them angry by a nation that has no understanding. For a fire will be kindled by my wrath, one that burns down to the realm of the dead below. It will devour the earth and its harvests, and set afire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap calamities on them, and spend my arrows against them, sending famine against them, consuming pestilence and deadly plague. I will send against them the fangs of wild beasts, the venom of vipers that glide in the dust. In the street, the sword will make them childless. In their homes, terror will reign. The young men and young women will perish, the infants and those with gray hair. I said I would scatter them and erase their name from human memory, but I dreaded the taunt of the enemy, lest the adversary misunderstand and say, our hand has triumphed. The Lord has not done all this. They are a nation without sense. There is no discernment in them. If only they were wise and would understand this and discern what their end will be. How could one man chase 1,000, or two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, unless the Lord had given them up? For their rock is not like our rock, as even our enemies concede. Their vine comes from the vine of Sodom and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are filled with poison, and their clusters with bitterness. Their wine is the venom of serpents, the deadly poison of cobras. Have I not kept this in reserve and sealed it in my vaults? It is mine to avenge. I will repay. In due time their foot will slip. Their day of disaster is near, and their doom rushes upon them. The Lord will vindicate his people and relent concerning his servants when he sees their strength is gone and no one is left, slave or free. He will say, now where are their gods? The rock they took refuge in, the gods who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings. Let them rise up to help you. Let them give you shelter. See now that I myself am He. There is no God besides me. I put to death, and I bring to life. I have wounded, and I will heal, and no one can deliver out of my hand. I lift my hand to heaven and declare, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand grasp it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, while my sword devours flesh, the blood of the slain and the captives, the heads of the enemy leaders. Rejoice, you nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his enemies and make atonement for his land and people.
Moses came with Joshua, son of Nun, and spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. When Moses finished reciting all these words to all Israel, he said to them,
Take to heart all the words I have solemnly declared to you this day, so that you may command your children to obey carefully all the words of this law. They are not just idle words for you, they are your life. By them you will live long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess.
The Lord told Moses,
Go up into the Abarim range, to Mount Nebo in Moab, across from Jericho, and view Canaan, the land I am giving the Israelites as their own possession. Just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people, this is because both of you broke faith with me in the presence of the Israelites at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the desert of Zin, and because you did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites. Therefore, you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel.
Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham, Sarah said,
God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that?
And was weaned. And on the day Isaac was weaned, Abraham held a great feast. But Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham was mocking. And she said to Abraham,
You get rid of that slave woman! Never share in the inheritance!
Concerned his son. But God said to him,
Do not be so distressed about the boy and your servant. Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the servant into a nation also, because he is your offspring.
Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down about a bowshot away, for she thought,
I cannot watch the boy die.
And as she sat there, she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her,
What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation.
Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer, While he was living in the desert of Paran, mother got a wife for him from Egypt. At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham,
God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me in the country where you now reside as a foreigner the same kindness I have shown to you.
Abraham said,
I swear it.
Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well. Abimelech said,
I don't know who has done this. You did not tell me, and I heard about it only today.
So Abraham brought sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a treaty. Abraham's
sons you have set apart by themselves.
He replied,
Except these 7 that I built this well.
So that place was called Beersheba, because the two men swore an oath there. After the treaty had been made at Beersheba, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba.
Judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure log that is in your own eye. Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy, that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name? And then will I declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on the house, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell, and great was the fall of it. And when Jesus finished these sayings, the crowds were astonished at his teaching, for he was teaching them as
The Lord Almighty is about to take from Jerusalem and Judah both supply and support, all supplies of food and all supplies of water. The hero and the judge and prophet, the diviner and the elder, the captain of 50 and the person of rank, the counselor, skilled worker, and people will oppress each other. One against honored. A man will seize one of his brothers in his father's house and say, "You have a cloak. You be our leader. Take charge of this heap of ruins." But in that day, he will cry out, "I have no remedy. I have no food or clothing in my house. Do not make me the leader of the people." Jerusalem staggers. Judah is falling. Their words and deeds are against the Lord, defying his glorious presence. The look on their faces testifies against them. They parade their sin like Sodom. They do not hide it. Woe to them. They have brought disaster upon themselves. Tell the righteous it will be well with them, for they will enjoy the fruit of their deeds. Woe to the wicked. Disaster is upon them. They will be paid back for what their hands have done.
Youths oppress my people. Women rule over them. My people, your guides lead you astray. They turn you from the path.
The Lord takes his place in court. He rises to judge the people. The Lord enters into judgment against the elders and leaders of his people.
It is you who have ruined my vineyard. The plunder from the poor is in your houses. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor?
Declares the Lord Almighty. The Lord says,
"The women of Zion are haughty, walking along with outstretched necks, flirting with their eyes, tripping along with mincing steps, with ornaments jingling on their ankles. Therefore, the Lord will bring sores on the heads of the women of Zion. The Lord will make their scalps bald."
In that day, the Lord will snatch away their finery, the bangles and headbands and crescent necklaces, the earrings and bracelets and veils, the headdresses and ankle chains and sashes, the perfume bottles and charms, the signet rings and nose rings, the fine robes and the capes and cloaks, the purses and mirrors, and the linen garments and tiaras and shawls. Instead of fragrance, there will be a stench. Instead of a sash, a rope. Instead of well-dressed hair, baldness. Instead of fine clothing, sackcloth. Instead of beauty, branding. Your men will fall by the sword, your warriors in battle. The gates of Zion will lament and mourn. Destitute, she will sit on the ground.
At Iconium, Paul and Barnabas went as usual into the Jewish synagogue. There they spoke so effect poisoned their mind message of his grace by enabling them to perform signs and wonders. The people of the city were divided. Some sided with the Jews, others with the apostles. There was a plot afoot among both Gentiles and Jews, together with their leaders, to mistreat them and stone them. But they found out about it and fled to the Lycaonian cities of Lystra and Derbe, and to the surrounding country, where they continued to preach the gospel. In Lystra there sat a man who was lame. He had been that way from birth and had never walked. He listened to Paul as he was speaking. Paul looked directly at him, saw that he had faith to be healed, and called out,
"Stand up on your feet."
At that, the man jumped up and began to walk. When the crowd saw what come down to us in human form, Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul they called Hermes because he was the chief speaker. The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the city, brought bulls and wreaths to the city gates because he and the crowd wanted to offer sacrifices to them. But when the apostles Barnabas and Paul heard of this, they tore their clothes and rushed out into the crowd, shouting,
"Friends, why are you doing this? We too are only human like you. We are bringing you good news, telling you to turn from these worthless things to the living God, who made heaven and earth and sea and everything in them. In the past, he let all nations go their own way, yet he has not left himself without testimony. He has shown kindness by giving you rain from heaven and crops in their seasons. He provides you with plenty of food and fills your hearts with joy.
Powerful are you,
Even with these words, they had difficulty keeping the crowd from sacrificing to them. Then some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium and won the crowd over. They stoned Paul and dragged him outside the city, thinking he was dead. But after the disciples had gathered around him, he got up and went back into the city. The next day, he and Barnabas left for Derbe. They preached the gospel in that city and won a large number of disciples. Then they returned to Lystra, Iconium, and Antioch, strengthening the disciples and encouraging them to remain true to the faith.
We must go through many hardships to enter the kingdom of God.
Paul and Barnabas appointed elders for them in each church, and with prayer and fasting committed them to the Lord, in whom they had put their trust. After going through Pisidia, they came into Pamphylia, and when they had preached the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia. From Attalia, they sailed back to Antioch, where they had been committed to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. On arriving there, they gathered the church together and reported all that God had done through them and how he had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And they stayed there a long time with the disciples.
Chapter 2. How the Lord in his anger has set the daughter of Zion under a cloud. He has cast down from heaven to earth the splendor of Israel. He has not remembered his stool in the day of his anger, broken down the kingdom and its rulers. He has cut down in fierce anger all the might of Israel. He has withdrawn from them his right hand in the face of the enemy. He has burned like a flaming fire in Jacob, consuming all around. He has bent his bow like an enemy, with his right hand set like a foe, and he has killed all who were delightful in our eye in the tent of the daughter of Zion. He has poured out his fury like fire. The Lord has become like an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. He has swallowed up all its palaces. He has laid in ruins its strongholds, and he has multiplied in the daughter of Judah mourning and lamentation. He has laid waste his booth like a garden, laid in ruins his meeting place. The Lord has made Zion forget festival and Sabbath, and in his fierce indignation has spurned king and priest. The Lord has scorned his altar, disowned his sanctuary. He has delivered into the hand of the enemy the walls of her palaces. They raised a clamor in the house of the Lord as on the day of festival. The Lord determined to lay in ruins the wall of the daughter of Zion. He stretched out the measuring line. He did not restrain his hand from destroying. He caused rampart and wall to lament. They languish together. Her gates have sunk into the ground. He has ruined and broken her bars. Her king and princes are among the nations. The law is no more, and her prophets find no vision from the Lord. The elders of the daughter of Zion sit on the ground in silence. They have thrown dust on their heads and put on sackcloth. The young women of Jerusalem have bowed their heads to the ground. My eyes are spent with weeping, my stomach churns, my bile is poured out to the ground because of the destruction of the daughter of my people, because infants and babies faint in the streets of the city. They cry to their mothers, "Where is bread and wine?" as they faint like a wounded man in the streets of the city, as their life is poured out on their mother's bosom. What can I say for you? To what compare you, O daughter of Jerusalem? What can I liken to you, that I may comfort you, O virgin daughter of Zion? For your ruin is vast as the sea. Who can heal you? Your prophets have seen for you false and deceptive visions. They have not exposed your iniquity to restore your fortunes, but have seen for you oracles that are false and misleading. All who pass along the way clap their hands at you. They hiss and wag their heads at the daughter of Jerusalem. Is this the city that was called the perfection of beauty, the joy of all the earth? All your enemies rail against you. They hiss, they gnash their teeth, they cry, "We have swallowed her." Ah, this is the day we longed for. Now we have it, we see it. The Lord has done what he purposed. He has carried out his word, which he commanded long ago. He has thrown down without pity. He has made the enemy rejoice over you and exalted the might of your foes. Their heart cried to the Lord, "O wall of the daughter of Zion, let tears stream down like a torrent day and night. Give yourself no rest, your eyes no respite. Arise, cry out in the night, at the beginning of the night watches. Pour out your heart like water before the presence of the Lord. Lift your hands to him for the lives of your children who faint for hunger at the head of every street. Look, O Lord, and see, with whom have you dealt thus? Should women eat the fruit of their womb, the children of their tender care? Should priest and prophet be killed in the sanctuary of the Lord? In the dust of the streets lie the young and the old. My young women and my young men have fallen by the sword. You have killed them of your anger, slaughtering without pity. You summoned, as if to a festival day, my terrors on every side. And on the day of the anger of the Lord, no one escaped or survived. Those whom I held and raised, my enemy destroyed.
The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the week that he could use.
Go back and lie down.
So he went.
You called me? My son.
Eli said,
I did not call.
Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. A third time the Lord. Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel,
Go and lie down. And if he calls you, say, Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.
So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as at the other times,
Samuel, Samuel.
Then Samuel said,
Speak, for your servant is listening.
And the Lord said to Samuel,
See, I am about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears about it tingle. At that time, I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family, from beginning to end. For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, and he failed to restrain them. Therefore, I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering.
Samuel lay down until morning, and then opened the doors of the house of the Lord. He was afraid to tell Eli the vision, but Eli called him and said,
Samuel, my son.
Samuel answered,
Here I am.
What was it he said to you?
Eli asked,
Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you.
So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said,
He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes.
The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, and there he revealed himself to Samuel through his word.
Chapter 2. My little children, I am writing these things to you so that you may not sin. But if anyone does sin, we have an advocate with the world, and by this we know that we have come to know him if we keep his commandments. Whoever says, I know him, but does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, in him truly the love of God is perfect. I am writing you no new commandment, but an old commandment that you had from the beginning. The old commandment is the word that you have heard. At the same time, it is a new commandment that I am writing to you, which is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away, and the true light is already still in darkness. Whoever loves his brother is stumbling, but whoever hates his brother is in the darkness and walks in the darkness, and does not know where he is going, because the darkness has blinded his eyes. I am writing to you, little children, because your sins are forgiven for his name's sake. I am writing to you, fathers, because you know him who is from the beginning. I am writing to you, young men, because you have overcome the evil one. I write to you, children, because you know the Father. I write to you, fathers, because you know him who is from the beginning. I write to you, young men, because you also know the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride in possessions, is not from the Father, but is from the world. And the world is passing away along with its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever. Children, it is the last hour. Heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come. Therefore we know that it is the last hour. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. But they went out, that it might become plain that they all are not of us. But you have been anointed by the Holy One, and you all have knowledge. I write to you not because you do not know the truth, but because you know it, and because no lie is of the truth. Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? This is the Antichrist, he who denies the Father and the Son. No one who denies the Son has the Father. Whoever confesses the Son has the Father also. Let what you heard from the beginning abide in you. If what you heard from the beginning abides in you, then you too will abide in the Son and in the Father. And this is the promise that he made to us, eternal life. I write these things to you about those who are trying to deceive you. But the anointing that you received from him abides in you, and you have no need that anyone should teach you. But as his anointing teaches you about everything, and is true, and is no lie, just as it has taught you, abide in him. And now, little children, abide in him, so that when he appears, we may have confidence and not shrink from him in shame at his coming. If you know that he is righteous, you may be sure that everyone who practices righteousness has been born of him.
During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years. So David sought the face of the Lord. The Lord said,
It is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death.
The king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel. The Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul in his zeal for Israel and Judah had tried to annihilate them. David asked the Gibeonites,
What shall I do for you? How shall I make atonement so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance?
The Gibeonites answered him,
We have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death.
What do you want me to do for you?
David asked. They answered the king,
As for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us, so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be given to us to be killed, and their bodies exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one.
So the king said,
I will give them to you.
The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Ai's daughter Rizpah, whom she had borne to Saul, together with the 5 sons of Saul's daughter Merab, whom she had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed them and exposed their bodies on a hill before the Lord. All 7 of them fell together. They were put to death during the first days of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning. Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock, from the beginning of the harvest till the rain poured down from the heavens on the bodies. She did not let the birds touch them by day, or the wild animals by night. When David was told what Aiah's daughter Rizpah, Saul's concubine, had done, He went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the citizens of Jabesh Gilead. They had stolen their bodies from the public square at Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down on Gilboa. David brought the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been killed and exposed were gathered up. They buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the tomb of Saul's father Kish at Zelah in Benjamin, and did everything the king commanded. After that, God answered prayer in behalf of the land. Once again there was a battle between the Philistines and Israel. David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels, and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck the Philistine down and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, saying,
"Never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished."
In the course of time, there was another battle with the Philistines at Gath. At that time, Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Saph, one of the descendants of Rapha. In another battle with the Philistines at Gath, Elhanan, son of Jair the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath the Gittite, who had a spear with a shaft, a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He also was descended. And he taunted Israel. Jonathan, son of Shemiah, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were descendants of Rapha in Gath, and they fell at the hands of David and his men.
Chapter 8. The whole commandment that I command you today you shall be careful to do, that you may live and multiply, and go in and possess the land that the Lord swore to give to your fathers. And you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, testing you to know what is in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And he humbled you, and let you hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Your clothing did not wear out on you, and your foot did not swell these 40 years. Know then in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, the Lord your God disciplines you. So you shall keep the commandments of the Lord your God by walking in his ways and by fearing him. For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and springs, flowing out in the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey, a land in which you will eat bread without scarcity, in which you will lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you can dig copper. And you shall eat and be full, and you shall bless the Lord your God for the good land he has given you. Take care lest you forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and his rules and his statutes, which I command you today, lest when you have eaten and are full, and have built good houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks multiply, and your silver and gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart be lifted up, and you forget the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who led you through the great and terrifying wilderness with its fiery serpents and scorpions and thirsty ground where there was no water, who brought you water out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna that your fathers did not know, that he might humble you and test you, to do you good in the end. Beware lest you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. And if you forget the Lord your God and go after other gods and serve them and worship them, I solemnly warn you today that you shall surely perish, Like the nations that the Lord makes to perish before you, so shall you perish, because you would not obey the voice of the Lord your God.
Listen to what the Lord says. Stand up. Plead my case before the mountains. Let the hills hear what you have to say. Hear, you mountains, the Lord's accusation. Listen, you everlasting foundations of the earth, for the Lord has a case against his people. He is lodging a charge against Israel. My people, what have I done to you? How have I burdened you? Answer me. I brought you up out of Egypt and redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam. My people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, plotted, and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered. Remember your journey from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may
come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God. Thousands of rams with 10,000 rivers of olive oil shall I offer my firstborn, for my transgression is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. Listen, the Lord is calling to the city, and to fear your name is wisdom.
heed the rod and the one who appointed it. Am I still to forget your ill-gotten treasures, you wicked house, and the short ephah which is accursed? Shall I acquit a person with dishonest scales, with a bag of false weights? Her rich people are violent. Her inhabitants are liars, and their tongues speak deceitfully. Therefore, I have begun to destroy you, to ruin you because of your sins. You will eat, but not be satisfied. Your stomach will still be empty. You will store up, but save nothing. Because what you save, I will give to the sword. You will plant, but not harvest. You will press olives, but not use the oil of yourselves. You will crush grapes, but not drink the wine. You have observed the statutes of Omri and all the practices of Ahab's house. You have followed their traditions. Therefore, I will give you over to ruin and your people to derision. You will bear the scorn of the nations.
Chapter 16. The Lord said to Samuel, How long will you grieve over Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil, and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided for myself a king among his sons. And Samuel said, How can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me. And the Lord said, Take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord, and invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me whom I declare to you. Samuel did what the Lord commanded, and came to Bethlehem. The elders of the city came to meet him, trembling, and said, Do you come peaceably? And he said, Peaceably. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves, and come with me to the sacrifice. And he consecrated Jesse and his sons, and invited them to the sacrifice. When they came, he looked on Eliab, and thought, Surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said to Samuel, Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. Thus he called Abinadab and made him, and he said, Neither has the Lord chosen this one. And Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, The Lord has not chosen these. Then Samuel said to Jesse, Are all your sons here? And he said, There remains yet the is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, Send and get him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and had beautiful eyes and was handsome. And the Lord said, Arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward, and Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Now the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And Saul's servant said to him, Behold now, a harmful spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord now command your servants who are before you to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre. And when the harmful spirit from God is upon you, he will play it, and you will be well. So Saul said to his servants, Provide for me a man who can play well, and bring him to me. One of the young men answered, Behold, I have seen the son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, and a man of good presence, and the Lord is with him. Therefore Saul sent messengers to Jesse, and said, Send me David your son, who is with the sheep. And Jesse took a donkey laden with bread and a skin of wine and a young goat, and sent them by David his son to Saul. And David came to Saul and entered his service. And Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor-bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Let David remain in my service, for he has found favor in my sight. And whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre and played it with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him.
He can turn the tides and calm the angry sea. He alone decides who writes a symphony. He lights every star that makes our darkness bright. He keeps watch all through each long and lonely night. He still finds the time to hear a child's first prayer. Saint or sinner calls, and always find him there. Though it makes him sad to see the way we live, you'll always say, I forgive. He can grant a wish or make a dream come true. He can paint the clouds and turn the gray to blue. He alone knows where to find the rainbow's end. He alone can see what lies beyond the bend. He can touch a tree and turn the leaves to gold. He knows every lie that you and I have told. Though it makes him sad to see the way we live, I forgive. He'll always say,
Radio, remember radio. We'd sit and close our eyes and use our imagination. song, comedy, mystery, a fireside chat. Together we sat, listening nightly to our favorite show, radio. Why did you ever go? Oh, won't you please come back and entertain us? Oh, I long to turn the dial again to hear the person smile again, radio. I miss you so.
Hello and welcome to Australian Radio Review, presenting memories of broadcasting as it used to sound in the golden days of radio. This program looks back on the early years of on-air entertainment. Many who grew up in Australia before the launch of television will remember their favourite stations and personalities. It's hoped that those who missed out on all that will nonetheless enjoy the on-air checks, interviews and features we'll present in this series. But caution, listeners should realise that references in recorded segments to time calls and commercial information does not necessarily apply today. Settle back now as we present another edition of Australian Radio Review.
We're gonna get it uptight. Everything is gonna be alright. Got to have a good time now. Come on along and find out how. 1500 wonderful 3AK good guys.
In this edition of Australian Radio Review, we're going to continue our replay of 3AK's 70th birthday celebrations. In our previous edition, you heard our host Gavin Wood speak with Tommy Hamlin Jr., Michael Williamson, Bert Newton, and Malcolm Searle. When we resume the recording, Gavin will be speaking with Lionel York, who, like Malcolm Searle, was one of the good guys. Then we'll hear Paul Jennings, followed by Mike and Gary Nichols. Oh, and we'll also hear an interview with Peter Smith and also Gary Mack. It was a rare one, maybe interested in that one. Mack, who was the proprietor of the Melbourne Radio School for announcing, which he had during the 1980s and 90s, and I guess may even still be running, I'm not sure. You know, when I hear Malcolm Searle, Lionel York and Grantley D and the other good guys talk about the time when the Beatles came to Melbourne, I think it was in 1963, I remember us at 3SK, St Kilda, and there were about 3 or 4 of us there gathered around, I think it was the TV or was it 3AK, listening to the good guys describing the activities at the Southern Cross Hotel. And that was all very intriguing. When I hear the good guys, I think of that time. Do you remember that rare one? I wonder if you do. That was a good time. Yeah, we were young, eh? Very good. I mentioned before that Paul Jennings will be coming up later in the program. Now, I think the rare one would remember Paul Jennings. He used to go to the radio announcing school. And I think you were there sometimes when Paul came in and joined the class. I certainly remember him on a number of occasions. He seemed to come along on the days I was there. But yeah, Paul Jennings, he was the guy who was on Channel 9 and also on 3AK. And he had this thing where he used to do impressions of people, putting on voices, and he used to act the announcing school teacher. Yes, son, yes. Yeah, I remember that. Anyway, Paul's going to be interviewed by Gavin in today's edition of our program, so you'll hear him there. So all those things bring back old memories, hey? Don't they? I hope you're enjoying this, Mr. Rare One. Oh, and by the way, I did promise to see if I could find out when they actually held this 70th anniversary of 3AK. Well, I Googled it and found that 3AK began transmissions on the 29th of November 1931. So that means their 70th birthday would have been in 2001. Yes, so that gives us an idea when they did this program. All right, let's resume the recording and we'll go back now to Gavin Wood.
1500 wonderful 3AK. Lionel York.
Lionel York, how are you?
Well, good evening, Gav. Good evening, everyone. Good to have you. Good to have you here with us in Perth.
Man, it's great to catch up with you. What a great jingle you had.
Was fantastic. It gave me a real good boost every time I heard that to get on the air and go into the first song, whether it be the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or whatever it may be, and it was just fantastic.
I was just speaking to Malcolm Searle. It was such a great time in radio, wasn't it? The Good Guy era on 3AK. You guys must have been absolutely chuffed to be in a format like that.
It was just wonderful. It certainly opened a lot of doors, not just for myself, but for a lot of the personalities on the air, and we did a heck of a lot, as you probably heard from Malcolm, regarding the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the introduction of the Beatles to Melbourne on the balcony of the Southern Cross Hotel, where I was lucky to be there and see all those people. It was just wonderful.
So you introduced the Beatles on the balcony?
No, I didn't. No, I was more backstage looking after all the Beatles' friends, so to speak.
Entourage.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was an exciting time, not only for 3AK, but for Melbourne as well, to have a band that hot in the country and flooding around the Southern Cross Hotel. Pardon me, Yorkie. Now, what did a good guy look like? What was, in my opinion, a good guy wore white slacks, white boots, a little like Ward Pally Austin,
I must admit I was a little bit like that, Gav. I did have all that paraphernalia and the bracelets on the wrist and the chains around the neck. Of stuff. Yeah. And can I tell you something now?
Yeah.
I'm still the same.
Good on you. Hey, listen, I've got a little air check of Lionel York's.
No.
Have a listen to this.
Love to. The name is C9 and she's great. The LP and the song is entitled Mr. Big Shot. Oh, you're with Yogi. Don't get the wrong idea. 3AK is your station and it's right on 312. 71 degrees at the moment in Melbourne. Party, little or no rain, which is going to be a beauty but mild.
Mum is never making a roast dinner taste like your mother's does.
How good is that?
That is just, that brought back so many memories. And it really is. I can go back, as we all do in our own minds, at special events, and whether it be happy events or sad events. And that was certainly a happy event, those years that I spent with 3AK.
Yeah, it must have been a great buzz in Melbourne. You also, not only were you a good guy, but you stayed on for the No Wrinklies era.
I had a little bit of that before I left, Gavin. I left in about 1970 or just after 1970, and they just bought it in. And then I went across to America for 3 years and worked over there.
Uh-huh.
So I was only there for a short time with the Wrinklies.
So that was before the green card, was it? You could go over there and work in America?
No, I had trouble getting a green card, and it took me probably 12 months to get that green card. So I was without a job for about 12 months, and then got a job in Dallas, Texas with some friends that I knew here in Melbourne who were over there, and that's how it all happened. So I then got the green card after that.
Right. And what happened to Lionel York when you came back from America?
When I came back to America, I couldn't get any work, to be honest with you, because as you know, what happens in radio is that when someone is ensconced in a format or whatever it may be, it's very hard to move unless, of course, they resign or something happens or the ratings are not very good. So I did. Graham Kennedy, of course, was on in those times in Melbourne Tonight, and then, of course, the Graham Kennedy Show, and there was different other programs that Channel 9 did.
Right.
And being involved with Channel 9 and 3AK in those early days, I made a lot of friends. So I got quite a lot of work with singing engagements, commercials with Graham Kennedy, and that was fantastic as well. So I did that, and then to cut a long story short, Gav, a couple of friends who were at 3AK in Melbourne were at 6 p.m. here in Perth in 73. They said, I know you're going back to America. Why don't you come over here for, a couple of weeks? And I said, that's fine. I had my mother who was very ill in Melbourne, and that's why I came back to to Melbourne, and she wasn't too well. So I said, well, what I would like to do is I'll do the 2 weeks, and if it goes to 4 weeks, please let me come across back to Melbourne every weekend or every second weekend, which they did do. So basically, it was so successful. I'd never done a talkback formula here in Australia. It's always been the Rocky or the disc jockey or whatever.
Yeah.
So I then got onto this wonderful piece regarding talkback, which I've never done before. And the 2 weeks went to 2 months. The 2 months went to 2 years. And it's now been 27, 28 years now.
There seemed to be a bit of a contest going between you and Baby John Burgess as to who owned, and also Ken Sparks in there. All you guys loved exotic cars, and you had half a dozen Rolls Royces between you, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we were very fortunate also that there was such a thing which doesn't happen in radio anymore.
Yeah.
Called Contra.
Okay. Now I've got you.
So they allowed us to drive a couple of those type of vehicles, and of course we never said a word about it.
No,
of course not.
No, it was yours.
Exactly. But later down the track, we got our own vehicles.
Now listen, I've got another good guy on the line.
Who's that?
You might. Grantley B. Good evening.
Yorkie.
Beatles. How you going, son?
Terrific. And Gav, the program is sounding absolutely brilliant.
Thanks, Grantley. It's great to have a couple of good guys on the radio together for the first time in how many years?
Oh, a long time, mate. Well, I saw Grantley there at a function around about 8 years or so ago, and we did, and Grantley will tell you the story. I won't spoil it for Grantley, but we did the good guys on our beach broadcasts and on different stages when Grantley was performing. We did terrible things to him.
They're legendary stuff. Now, do you want to just say a couple? Because I'm sure Grantley doesn't mind.
Well, I remember one particular time, and it wasn't me doing it, but he was on stage singing a song, or before he went on stage, and he'll remember this, and I can't remember who did it, but of course, with Grantley being blind, we took him on stage and put him in front of the microphone.
Right.
This particular time, they didn't put him in front of the microphone, they turned him around the other way.
Oh, Grantley, they did some mean things to you, mate.
That was Malcolm Searle,
he's a sly fox, Malcolm Searle.
Yes, indeed.
Malcolm really knew what it was like. He was a born troublemaker, and he still is. Even listening to him now, he sounds absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to say to Yorkie before he goes, Grantley?
I just want to say, Yorkie.
Yep.
You paying attention?
I am.
Good to have you on the show.
Take care, mate. And Gavin, thank you for the opportunity.
Look, it's my pleasure. It's just great to reminisce. And 70 years at 3OK, a very special day today. And it was just a pleasure to have you on. Lionel York, thank you.
Thank you.
La 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 la
One of the good guys was Paul Jennings. Now, Paul Jennings started out his career as a young DJ, and now he's one of the great impressionists of the world. He does impressions of everybody, but I don't think he does an impression of Gavin Wood. He's on the line. Good guy, Paul Jennings. Good evening.
Good evening, Gavin. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Tell me about those early heady days of a good guy at 3AK.
Well, the early heady days was the good guy period, and I occupied those benches, so to speak, between 1965 and about 69.
Right.
And it was like one of several tasks I had in that building, was being a presentation announcer at Channel 9, a commentator on the wrestling, working on IMT and sketches, and then throwing in the good guys on the weekend.
Right.
It made for a pretty busy weekend.
Yeah.
And other days as well. But no, it was good. It was an interesting experience working alongside Perth. And who else was the originally Grantley D, of course.
Lionel York, yeah.
And then followed
Mike Nichols.
Later, I think.
Yeah, Baby John Burgess.
He was later. I think he was in the next era, which was Reekley's, was it?
So you had two kind of different good guys. Now, we were talking on air a little earlier on today. Greg Evans said, what do you think a good guy looked like back then? And I said, well, A colourful shirt and a gold chain.
Not really.
No?
No, we had uniforms.
Oh, did you? Tell me.
We had a sort of a reefer jacket with a little emblem, like on the pocket where we used to put your handkerchief there.
Right.
And had a 3AK. In fact, there should be historical photos lying around 3AK hallways, I'm sure, with these jackets. And then we moved to a grey jacket. So we're always dressed like representatives of a radio station.
Uh-huh.
Very, very, very soldier. We weren't soldiers. We looked like as if we were
part of a team.
Part of a team, yes.
Yeah, that's good. So do you look back fondly on those days as a good guy?
I do. In fact, Pete Smith used to call me the CMF disc jockey. Now, that means when you're in the Army and you did the national service in the old days, then you had CMF on one weekend per month.
Right.
So if I just basically work weekend.
Which is like cadets.
Cadets, that's right. So you work weekends. So I worked Saturday night and I think Sunday morning. Saturday night was funny because you'd start about 5 and finish at 7 and then close the station down. Because we shared a frequency with the Bundaberg railway station, radio station.
Yeah, with the Bathurst radio station.
Was it Bathurst, was it? One of those.
Yeah.
And we had to close down because the frequencies would overlap or something at night time.
Yeah, and so Frank Packer came in and bought the Bathurst radio station and then
killed that off.
AK went into 24 hours.
Which was 1968 and we had a big party in Studio 9.
Yeah.
And Kerry Packer came down to participate in the opening because he wasn't involved with the 9 network then. That was prior. Like Clyde Packer was in charge.
Yeah.
And Kerry came down. He was with Women's Weekly, and we're all wandering around, and we were paraded. And Kerry actually was talking to Nigel Dick, who was the then manager of Channel 9. I think he handled Channel 9 and 3AK combined. So
yes, he did. Yeah, Nigel was on the air with Darren earlier on today.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so what happened one day? On this particular opening, Nigel was talking to Kerry Packer, and Nigel noticed me walk past. He said, "Oh, Paul," because that's what Paul, come over here. What is it?
Yeah.
That's why Nigel said, "Oh, what is it, Mr. Dick?" He said, "Paul, I want you to meet Kerry Packer." Oh, all right, Mr. Packer. Now, Paul, before you go, do me. In other words, impersonate. Well, oh, come on, Mr. Dick, this is a bit embarrassing. No, come on, do me.
Yeah.
So I impersonated him, and Kerry said backwards, he said, in the background, he said, "Yes, dead spit. Dead spit." Because Kerry has a little bit of a whistle, doesn't he?
Little Alan Searle thing happening there.
Just a slight one there.
In the composts.
So they were great fun days, and being part of that, closing down at 7 and then going into the 24 hours thing, and I'm still part of Channel 9. But before Good Guy, I think they had a thing called Television City. Well, Television City was like Channel 9 and AK combined. So
that's right. That's when they had the caravan down by the pool.
Is that it? Yes. And I had people, I think Eric Pearce might have been a...
Yes, Eric Pearce was there.
Presenter, and the Malcolm Searle.
Malcolm Searle, yes.
Yes.
Some great memories. Now, what happened to you after the Good Guy era finished for you, Paul?
Oh, when I left Channel 9, I then went over to 3UZ and did news, and then KZ, and then after that left radio altogether, really, and then got into this racket I'm in now.
Yeah,
which has been fun.
What would Bob Hawke say about 70 years of 3AK?
Well, I believe that AK has served the world well, in as much it is a station entertaining, to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, I hope I've covered it because no other station could have those copies.
No, well, that's quite true. I'm just wondering, our present Prime Minister, Mr. John Howard, would he cast a good eye of approval over 3AK's years?
Oh, certainly. I must say, though, that when I was, a backbencher, I used to travel down to Melbourne a lot and tune into AK, but that was after Good Guys.
Yeah.
Of course, we had our own Good Guys in Sydney. I think it was 3AK had theirs, and they were the better ones, AK, because I think the presenters were alive and full of great delivery.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm just...
Yes, well, Peter Harvey, National 9 News and 3AK, of course, I serve both stations
and it's pretty quiet here in Canberra at the moment, and it's getting Christmas, and not a lot happening except just, standing by the gardens on Lake Burley Griffin and watching Canberra, and of course, 3AK.
Good guy, Paul Jennings. Thanks for your time tonight, and well done.
Good day, Gavin.
Good Guy Radio, wonderful 3AK. 1500, wonderful 3AK. Pete Smith.
Pete Smith, good evening.
I haven't heard that jingle in 30 years, I think. More than 30 years.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Good evening, Gray.
Good evening.
How are you, Gav?
Very good.
Sorry, I was thinking of your producer. He's such a nice boy.
That's all right, Pete. You're on holidays anyway, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
You're somewhere around the world?
Yeah, I've just had a game of golf, actually, Gavin. And,
Don't do that to me. I've been here since 9 o'clock this morning. How did you play?
Not too bad. I'm sort of, most of the time I'm in the bunkers.
Yeah?
I feel like taking a spade and a shovel. Hey, I haven't heard that jingle in such a long time.
Let's have a listen to it one more time, shall we?
1500, wonderful 3AK.
Gee, that was one of the jingle packages, I think, that David Joseph organised.
Yeah, David Joseph's name has been coming up regularly tonight.
Well, he was really the creator of, the Australian version of the Good Guys, as you'll realise, and I don't know what happened to David. I think he went off, and he was very entrepreneurial, always starting new things from scratch. And
overseas, I believe.
All right.
Now, I've got a air check here featuring Gradley D. and featuring a Pete Smith ad. Now, I don't know what it is. Have a listen. We'll both listen to it together.
Yes, it tears me apart. Darling, it's the old Shirelles Beatles song, Girl Baby, It's You. The West Coast sound of Jeff Phillips on Radio 1 at 20 minutes away from 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's top variety entertainment with Graham Kennedy and your IMT favorites in the national edition of IMT tonight on GTV Channel 9 at 9:30. Join Graham with his guests Ted Hamilton, Alf Smith, Maggie Jodrell, and the Kinsman tonight on In Melbourne Tonight at 9:30 GTV Channel 9.
Gotta say hi right now to two fellas in New South Wales who phoned us earlier.
I don't know about that. I can remember back then when I listened to Phil Brady. We on Channel 9 there were 9 full-time booth announcers,
right?
And it was all as far as I was concerned. Anyway, I was rounding my vowels and very, very conscious of I just come over from the ABC, and there's a lot of that in behind.
Yeah,
wonderful.
It was great to hear that. Now, of course, having so many booth announcers, 3AK. All of a sudden inherited so many announcers.
Well, that's true, except that I came over, I'd been very lucky because at the ABC I was sort of a big fish in a little bowl in a way. I was doing their only hit parade type programs with a 20-piece dance orchestra, would you believe?
Wow.
Because, of course, the major metropolitan, certainly Sydney and Melbourne, had their own, the ABC Melbourne Dance Band under Frank Thorne, and you might remember the name Jim Gussie. He conducted the band in Sydney.
Right.
And they did the popular type programs with live entertainers, like, as you heard then, Ted Hamilton and Heather Horwood, Gaynor Bunning, all those sort of people, Grantley himself.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful thing to be able to do that. And they actually wrote scores of the American hits because, of course, in those days we didn't get the American hits, the overseas hits, quite as quickly as we do now. In fact, many, many months sometimes could pass.
Yeah, yeah. And from the Good Guy era, you stayed on to the friendly format as well.
Yes, I for a little while, because it was just so easy there, being the studio being at Channel 9 as it was for so long.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess you've spoken about that for so long.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess you've spoken about those wonderful times when people like Eric Pearce did their own program. Eric had his own show. In fact, anybody who was anybody on Channel 9 had their own show on the radio.
Yes, we've played a little bit of Eric tonight, a little air check of Eric Pearce, a little bit of Bert, and we've spoken to Bert, and it's just been fantastic reliving.
And my best memories, of course, are the old, you'd be too young, Gavin, but the old Hideout days from Frankston with Graham and Bert. They were wonderful shows, the
That's
morning
right.
women's area.
Yeah, 2 hours every morning. They did that for about 2 years, so Bert said.
Right.
Yeah. So, did you go down there, or were you back?
No. It was always just the twosome. I mean, how Bert ever kept up that pace? Well, of course, his pace now is a cracking pace, and people
worse now.
Can't believe the way he his resilience and his stamina, which is quite extraordinary, really. He's doing Wizard of Oz at the moment.
I know.
Interstate, plus his television shows and so forth. But I mean, back in those days, we were all a lot younger then, but even so, Bert would finish on IMT at God knows what time, after 11 o'clock at night, and then be fronting up early the next morning with Graham. Graham had been in his pyjamas, of course. He didn't have anywhere to go, but so it was a marvellous era.
Bert said tonight they had limited frequency, but they still rated consistently number 2 in Melbourne.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I was lucky when I was a good guy. I was a good part-time good guy, you might say, because I didn't do Monday to Friday. I did a thing on a Saturday afternoon called the Penthouse Party.
Right.
And I was lucky in a way because every other station was doing sport. Every other commercial station was doing sport.
Nothing's changed.
No, but I had it all on my own, because we were there from, I think we closed down actually 5 or 6 or 7, depending on the time of the year.
You've just given me a great idea. Penthouse Party, Brett de Hoot, Saturday, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. We used to run a sort of a party effect on a loop tape behind us, and I can remember Gary Day, the then general manager, ringing up and screaming one afternoon that the news was on, and I'd left the party loop tape on under the news. He wasn't at all pleased with that.
Oh, those little mistakes you make. Did you make any other mistakes or any other funny stories?
Nothing that I'm prepared to talk about. But of course, it was wonderful in those days, Kevin, because we really did. You really didn't have to beg for listeners in those days; they were just there.
Mm. Who said I'm begging now? Who said I'm begging now?
Oh, no.
I'm not paranoid.
But I mean, it's the same. I think there's just so much more call on people's leisure time.
Of course.
There are so many more things on the go for people that, you've really got to fight to carve out your own niche.
You've had a remarkable career. 29 for 78 years. I think that is incredible.
Is that what it sounds like? Is it?
Well, no. I mean, it's fantastic that you've remained at the top of your game for so many years.
I think it's just been good luck, and being with a station that has been so not only supportive, but of course has been a prolific outpourer, if you like, of Australian content, particularly out of the Channel 9 studios in Melbourne over those years. And although there's been the ups and downs, as you'll attest, the ups and downs and the cycles that change out of variety and so forth. I mean, when IMT first went into dark, 300 people were associated with that program,
Gee, 300.
I mean, we had, there was a permanent ballet of 12 on the staff. There was a full-time orchestra on the staff. There were singers. There were 8 of those, 8 singers. They were fully, full-time on the staff. And, but of course, things change, and you've got to roll with the punches, I guess.
Ah, yes, things get trimmed down. Now, Pete, I've got another good guy on the line, and I'm going to play his jingle right now.
1500 wonderful 3AK. Gary Mack.
Gary Mack, good evening.
What a wonderful night of nostalgia you're doing in there, Gavin. Good on you. How are you?
Oh, mate, I'm very well. I've got Pete Smith on the other line.
G'day, Pete.
G'day, Gary. I mean, Gavin, if you want to talk about survivors, there's a guy who's not only survived, but, been a wonderful assistance to newcomers in this business, of which there are many, and God knows how many people are working in the business now around Australia, thanks to Gary.
Yeah, and he's got one of the best voices in the world, too. How does he get away with it?
You're very, very kind. I remember being on the couch just a couple of weeks, or even last week, I think it was, Gavin.
Yes,
we talked about all of those things, but to answer your question, Pete, 19 years the radio school, and really quite a large number of people now working in the industry in all various areas.
Yes, and the demands have changed, I suppose, so much over those years, haven't they, in a way? I mean, you could once send somebody up to the bush, and that was fine, but now I suppose really it's the field's narrowed down in a way. It's a little harder now, isn't it?
Well, no, I think the opportunities are there, of course, with change, and the biggest change has been, the networking of radio stations and the computer technology. But if you understand those things and you understand how to approach it, and that's exactly what we do, people get jobs. In fact, what's today? Thursday.
Yes.
2 people this week got jobs in radio from the Melbourne Radio School.
Well done.
That's fantastic.
Very,
Well, I
very
mean,
proud
what
of
about, who does the funeral announcements up the bush now? You remember they used to do funerals, they used to do cattle calls, for God's sake.
They don't do them anymore.
Remember on 3XY the morning, they used to do the waterside workers' numbers. Number so-and-so, report to station Pier, so-and-so, web doc. It used to go on for ages.
And it used to do it up to about 1983 or 4, from memory.
Yeah.
You know, and now, Pete, before you go, a listener wants to know, who was your female partner on a Saturday afternoon on 3AK?
Oh, golly, isn't that terrible? I've even got photos of her. But I used to have a girl I used to call the teaser girl.
Right.
And, in fact, everything was on tape. And she'd make comments which at the time were considered to be a little risque, but I guess, today anything goes.
Yeah.
But, no, I just can't think of her name. I hope this will bring them out of the woodwork.
Well, yes, I hope so too. Peter, it's great to talk to you. A good guy from back then, and thank you for your time tonight.
Good on you, Gavin. Good night. Good night to you, Gary.
Thank you, Pete. Good to hear you on the wireless again.
We'll pause now for a few moments in our program for station identification. You're listening to 2CM, your hi-fi service, and the program is Australian Radio Review.
Truckman, the best way to handle tire troubles is not to let them happen. See the tire technicians at Bow Repairs for a free maintenance check.
Tire smooth, damage won't hold air.
See tire technician, Bow Repair.
Where?
Bow Repair.
Yeah.
In the previous edition of Australian Radio Review, we played for you a tribute to Granny D, and that was in Music World. And one of the persons who gave a tribute in that program was Gary Mack. Gary Mack is in Melbourne. I think it was called the Melbourne Radio School. And he's been operating that for some 20 years or so. I think he talks about it anyway. So I thought I'd just point that out in case you would like to especially take a note of Gary coming up. And he's going to tell about his experiences on 3AK.
On 3AK.
Now, Gary Mack, as my boy Mack, have a listen to this.
Okay.
The day my mama talked to tube at the Hopper Valley PTA, and she's pretty too. That's GDC Riley, top of the dial. This is where you twice as much music, twice as much news, 24 hours of every day, and of course we're twice as friendly. Have a good day today. Well, it's still really a good day out there. The temperature is on 67 degrees in Melbourne, and I hope you had a wonderful day. If you had a good day at work, then I'm glad. If you had the day off, then I'm glad. I had a pretty lazy sort of day today. Didn't get up till rather late. Then I just sort of lazed around. Oh, it was fun.
Good guy radio, wonderful 3AK.
Hey, you out there. I'm talking to you. You out there in the crowd.
Hey, you in the crowd.
It sounded like Grantley D there.
Hey, listen, we all kind of sounded the same. But listen, wasn't the perception that we gave out, we were really having a good time.
Yeah, and I really like it when you get up there and do that. That's fantastic to hear that.
Now, do you know when that was? That would have been, I would say that would have been about middle 1969.
Really?
I joined 3AK in October 1968, and it was at that time, just prior to that time, actually, was the negotiations between, and I know you've already been talking about this tonight, Gav, with the acquisition of 2BS in Bathurst.
That's right.
I remember sitting in the radio station at Bathurst. I was doing breakfast there. It was about 10 to 9, and this rather sort of almost grumpy man arrived at the front door. The door was locked.
Yeah.
I went down and opened the door, and I said, "Can I help you?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "This is my radio station." And I said, who are you? And it was Sir Frank Packer.
Yeah.
He had actually driven from Sydney with a couple of other people.
Get away.
And he was negotiating with the owners of the radio station to buy it. Soon after that, I got an offer of a job in Newcastle, which I decided to take. And in fact, I accepted it verbally on the phone. Yes, I'll be in Newcastle, blah, blah, blah. I went ahead and tendered my resignation to the management at Bathurst. The the deal had gone through between 3AK and Bathurst, and naturally at that time, I think Bathurst was being run from 3AK here in Melbourne. And would have been about 4 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call because I was always up at about 4 to do the breakfast session.
Yeah.
The phone went, which was very unusual, and it was Gary Day, who was at that time the Chief Executive Officer of 3AK.
Right.
He said, "G'day, son." He said, "I've got your resignation here." He said, "You're not going to bloody Newcastle, you're coming to Melbourne."
That's lovely.
So I joined them at the time when they went to the 24-hour operation.
Yeah.
It was a limited radio station with its transmission, and that would have happened late October, early November.
Right. In 68.
Late 68, early
8th of November 1968.
That's really okay. You've got it. Yeah.
I got it here. Yeah.
I was going to say early November. Yeah.
Yeah. And gee, that's amazing that we had Gary Day on the radio this afternoon, and he came up with a couple of great stories about about that Bathurst time, and how Sir Frank Packer bought the radio station and how they could go 24 hours. But it was a great time back then. I mean, the buzz in the city when the good guys were happening, and then you went into the No Wrinkly era as well of 3AK too, didn't you?
In fact, I can remember, and I really have this strong sentimental attachment to 3AK. I was there from 68 until it was 74. 73 was when they went into the Beautiful Music project, which no doubt you'll be talking about.
Oh yes, that's coming up, folks.
And that 5.5, nearly 6 years was a time in my life that I really the memories I will always treasure. It was a very, very special time. I enjoyed at one stage there, I think, for a couple of ratings periods, and we're all subjected to our performance levels in this business. But at one stage there, I became the highest rated radio program in Australia and had a personal rating up in the high 20s with all people, which was absolutely phenomenal.
Awesome.
And that actually happened with the Wrinkly, program that was on at that time.
What shift were you doing?
I was doing nights.
Uh-huh.
Yorkie mentioned earlier that he took off to the States. They took me out of nights and put me in Drive, which was the show that he was doing.
Right. Okay.
But they were really heady times. When you walked into the radio station, you could really feel the electricity coming off the wall. Fantastic.
It just sounded like it. Gary, and it's great to reminisce and catch up with you tonight. Coming up after this break, I've got two brothers who actually were sons of two famous people on 3AK, the Nichols brothers. Mike and Gary coming up next on Talk 1116, 3AK. Do not go away.
1500, home of the good guys. Wonderful 3AK. Playful. Playful.
And a very big good evening to all the good guys listening to Talk 1116, Melbourne's 3AK tonight, and also all the friendly guys and the No Wrinklies guys, but a couple of brothers actually, probably the only family on Australian radio where 4 members were rated number 1 at various times. Dad and Mum, Nikki Nichols, and of course Nancy Lee, and Mike and Gary started as good guys and also stayed on for No Wrinklies, and we'll find out about in just a sec, because Mike was the last one to speak on No Wrinklies. But his brother Gary Nichols joins me now. G'day, Gary.
G'day, Gavin. How you doing?
Look, I'm very well. You all sound the same. I was just saying to Gary Mack when he was on the air, he sounded like Grantley D. But I get that sometimes now when we're at 3XY. They say, "Oh, gee, you sound like Greg Evans," and Greg gets that. You sound like Gavin Wood. But I suppose it's just the era, isn't it, Gary?
Well, there's a bit of that, I suppose, Gavin, but I don't know. I think if you stop using the pipes, as I've done, because I've not been on air for a long time now, maybe things fall away. I was listening to Gary Mack before, and he's sounding as good as ever, I reckon.
He's got a marvellous voice, hasn't he?
Yeah, hate him.
Yeah, so do I. Now, of course, with a mum and dad like that, you were destined being radio, weren't you? And particularly 3AK.
Yes, well, it was never going to be sort of a fireman or a policeman or things like that. It was just something that I really wanted to do, and radio was really good. I was involved in radio most of the time up to about 1995, where I've switched over to television these days, but they were some great days, that's for sure.
You started out as a good guy.
Yes, at 3AK, I've done other things before that, of course, but 3AK, I came in during the good guys with Alan Aitken and Yorkie and Gary Mack and Bill Howie and Graham Boyd and Pete Smith.
Right. A formidable team.
Well, yes, it was just a great thing to come to work in those days. Very exciting.
And then you stayed on for the Wear No Wrinklies, that powerhouse 2 years that got them back up to number one again.
Yes, well, I think that was the first time that 3AK hit number one was during the Wrinkly campaign, and Rhett Walker was the program manager in those days, and a tough taskmaster, but he got us focused on what we had to do. And I remember one day at a jock meeting, sitting around the table, and he pulled out this sepia-coloured cover of an album, a record. This is a vinyl, 12-inch vinyl album.
Yeah.
And it was Elton John's Tumbleweed Connection. Oh. And he said, if you guys can't get in this, you don't deserve to be here.
Yeah, well, that's very true. Just a great song. Hey, listen, I've got an air check. Nancy Lee, have a listen.
Yes, you'll find more Christmas recipes in The Age today. Ideal suggestions to please all tastes and made from the most wholesome ingredients. So, don't miss more special recipes, Christmas recipes, today in The Age.
The Age is right for you.
Gee, you probably heard that live as a nipper.
It's terrible. Hey, didn't we speak funny in those early days?
Oh, I'll say. Hey, listen, just to reminisce even more, have you spoken to your brother for a while?
Oh, just today, that's all.
Just today. When was the last time you spoke to him?
Oh, probably a couple of days ago.
Oh, good. You keep in contact then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Mike Nichols, good evening.
Hello there, and happy birthday, buddy.
Oh, that's good. You're sounding like that too.
I am not. Knock it off. You know my brother is Gary, but he'll always be Fat Ed to me.
Now, Mike, we had a bit of a time to track you down. We're so pleased that we've got you. No Wrinklies.
Yep.
And we've got it on tape. Just to prove it.
Oh, no.
What a way to go, right? That's Martin Mull and the orchestra and dueling tubas with Mike Nichols. What's left of Thursday night? We only got 3 minutes to go before 12 on 3AK. And there's nothing I can say that Spectrum won't say for me, except with me, I'm taking all my rock and roll, all my boogie, and all my blues.
Loving isn't easy.
1971, and from Spectrum and Mike Nichols, I'll Be Gone. Thank you. It's 12 o'clock in Melbourne. With 3AK News, here's Graham Wilson.
Thanks, Mike. A French Navy aircraft carrier has left Tahiti.
Blimey. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I sound like I was on sleeping tablets.
Well, it was a nighttime gig.
Yeah, and it was laid back.
And then I heard from John O'Donnell the other night that you left the studio and went over and joined John O'Donnell and got into the Red. Is that right?
And Trevor Smith and all the crew at XY. Now, the funny thing about that was, and once again, I'm so glad that Gaz mentioned Rhett Walker because, as you know, Gavin, for anybody in radio, particularly jocks or, communicators, announcers, whatever, it's so important to have a good program director. They can make or break you.
Absolutely.
And, yep, Rhett Walker was a hard taskmaster, but he was also a brilliant PD. And I'd had the pleasure of working with Rod Muir and a couple of other really good PDs, but Rhett Walker was special. And he came up with something with the Wrinkly campaign, and just the way that he ran the station as well, and that he worked with you. For some, it was like working under the guy, but it was really working with him, and he had a vision.
Yeah.
And that was just fantastic. And they were just special days, and it was a special station.
See, it's funny. We are in a communications industry, and the station zings when you get a program director that actually communicates.
Yeah, you betcha. And that's what it was about. It was about communicating. XY and AK, we were running neck and neck in and out of each survey.
Yeah.
And I was about to say before, Rhett had heard that one or two of us were fraternising with, in those days, they were considered the enemy.
Yeah.
And my best mates worked at XY.
Right.
You know, we were all very social with each other and parties and stuff. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The boys came around and picked me up after I finished that show at AK. And John O'Donnell and Trevor Smith were sharing a place together in Hawthorne, just across the river from Richmond.
Right.
And I went back there and we did party pretty hard, as I remember.
Yeah,
And,
but while you were recuperating the next morning, I did my first gig at Beautiful Music, and I've got to tell you, that was something to clear out your tonsils.
But Rhett Walker had also stated that if any of us were caught in a party situation or having dinner or whatever with anybody else from another station, you would be instantly dismissed. So I was doing this cloak and dagger thing of, you know, I couldn't say see you later to my mates.
Yeah.
But they were very funny times as well, and the rivalry was just incredible, particularly between the two stations, but that also produced just magic radio.
Well, Gary has said he's still in the business. That's right, Gary, isn't it?
I'm not in radio. I'm in television now, actually.
Right. Where are you in television?
I'm the Shepparton manager for 10 Victoria.
Uh-huh. Well, that's but you're still in the business then. You've gone to the other side, Gary. And Mike, what are you doing with yourself these days?
Mate, after 35 years in radio, I only very recently, 3 weeks ago, stepped out for the first time. And I'd been up in Toowoomba as music director of a station up there and drive announcer.
Right.
And I just want to contribute more in my life, so I'm actually getting into counselling, and today started work with Kids Helpline, which is in a Brisbane-based organisation, helping kids out. And I'm going to do a course in counselling, and that's the direction that I'm taking, just to because I love people, and I think the people skills and communication that I've learned out of radio, I'll take into a counselling area, and I'm very much looking forward to this.
More power to you, Mike.
Thanks, Matt.
And Gary, great to have you both on the radio tonight to reminisce.
Good
Happy birthday again.
And a fantastic effort. This is. I know that you guys have just put hours and hours and hours into this.
Oh, just a couple of phone calls.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who can find my brother.
He's alive and well in Brisbane.
Hey, listen, we've got Sparksy and Baby John Burgess coming up right behind you guys. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Fantastic.
Gary and Mike Nichols on Talk 1116 3AK. It's 6 to 8 tonight, and as I said, a couple of the legends of Australian radio, Ken Sparks and Baby John Burgess, next.
Reckless, never do. They don't even try. 3AK when the red.
And one of the greatest names from that era, Ken Sparks. Good evening.
Good evening to you, Gavin. Happy birthday to all the team. It's a long way from 1931, isn't it?
It's a long way from 1931.
Oh, you old fossil. Great to have you on the radio, mate.
Well, it was fantastic. My time at 3AK was an interesting one. I did Saturday and Sunday nights for 6 hours.
Wow.
Rhett Hamilton Walker III.
Yeah.
He convinced me to go into it.
Yeah.
We'd been actually a little bit of a competition years earlier when he was on 2UW, should I say, in Sydney.
Right.
I was on 2GB. We're opposition DJs. And then eventually we got together and got to respect each other's, particularly programming prowess that he had. And I'd spent a lot of time in the United States studying it. And so he convinced me to go onto 3AK to do what was called the forerunner for soft contemporary rock. It was another one of his great ideas because they'd moved away out of Where No Wrinklies Fly.
Yeah.
And that was my chance to work with Rhett Hamilton up close and personal. And then he put me in charge of the music, and he never let his finger off anything because we used to have our regular meetings during the week and just talking all the time in regard to which particular track we'd play.
I was speaking to Gary Day today, and he said that Rhett would sit down with headphones on almost all day listening to music. Were you the same?
Very much. You've got to be right into it, and particularly when you were going into the lyric. The lyric content was extremely important in what we were trying to put together.
Right.
And we would go in to play records that nobody else played in Melbourne, and possibly not
and not in Australia, things like Maria Muldaur's "It Ain't the Meat, It's the Motion" that made you want to rock and roll, and things like that.
Great song.
We'd pick out different tracks, and it was to be an alternative format. Unfortunately, it didn't survive, and it went on to Beautiful Music, and I did the final contemporary music program, and they said, well, you want to be on Beautiful Music because you can do all that stuff. You're listening to 3AK, Beautiful Music. I said, no way. I want to stay with rock and roll, even though it's like contemporary rock.
Good on you. I was just thinking then, I spoke to Pete Smith before.
Yes.
And like the big promos and all of that. And you've been with, connected to Channel 9 all those years.
It's been a long gig, and as a matter of fact, we're on contract.
Good on you.
It's one that I enjoy. I initially started doing that as I did, things like working at 3AK to pay for my motor racing career.
Yes.
Because that was like standing under the shower ripping up $1,000 bills. And it was just unfortunate that I had to give away some part of the radio. But today, of course, I'm still in radio. I'm with 2UE here in Sydney.
Right.
And I just came back from New York where I won an award for the best oldies nostalgia program called Living in the 70s.
Well done.
So it's been, we were fortunate, as a matter of fact, to get out one day before September 11.
Oh, gee, you're lucky.
It was just horrific. And, of course, we were there in New York. I didn't go to the World Trade Center. It's never really attracted me.
Yeah.
Because I like the romance of the Empire State Building.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, a plane actually went into the Empire State during the 40s, but certainly nowhere near the devastation that happened at the WTC.
Yeah.
But
quite true.
Working at AK, an interesting thing that used to happen there was that Rhett would put us into producing live on-air music specials that it would take producers months in the studio to do. Absolutely months. And you had to do it live.
Gee.
Insert the music, make sure it came in at the right time with the right sort of interview piece, background music, and not just for 1 hour, for 6-hour gigs.
Ooh.
But that was the sort of inspiration that he gave us. And he was probably, I believe, the most astute paperwork radio man in the history of this country. He would cross the T's, dot the I's, just absolutely sensational. In working with him, you're not going to believe this, but I've got people here trying to get into this house.
Really?
Because we're moving office.
Right.
And I'm just going to run out here. This is the magic of live radio. And say to my son,
someone breaking in.
Come on down. Come on down. I'm on the air.
He's going, oh, God, Dad's going off again. He still thinks he's on 3AK.
Yeah, exactly. He's ringing, the mobile phone was going, then he was on hold, and now he's on the buzzer.
Kids do that to you, Sparksy.
I know, that's the problem, and no wonder I'm keeping slim, trim, and unattractive.
Good on you.
Here he is here.
I was speaking to Lionel York before, and I said to him, there seemed to be, a bit of a contest between Yorkie, Ken Sparks, and Baby John Burgess as to how many Rolls Royces and Ferraris that you all owned.
Well, we were going. I'm just going to get back to the other phone, Gavin.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is live radio.
Sorry about that. Off one. This is, again, through the magic of live radio.
Okay, so you've got a couple of phones. Don't brag.
Oh, yeah. I remember that old gag when Sam Chisholm, who headed up Channel 9, he got a mobile phone, and another guy from another television channel phoned him and said, hey, listen, just thought I'd tell you I got a mobile phone. He said, can you hold the line for a moment? My other one's ringing.
Yeah.
But as far as the cars were concerned, I know that Baby John, he sort of molded a lot of his thoughts. In some ways, he was influenced by John Laws. And Laws, who was, of course, a great car nut. I'd been into motor racing. I had petrol in my veins instead of blood.
Yeah.
And so that the way that we kind of like the fancy cars, and it's continued on to this day. I've got less. I think I went up to about 14 at one time, and I'm now down to 6.
Ferraris?
Still got a Ferrari. Like the Ferraris, they build some great cars at reasonable prices.
Right, the WRX, the fast one?
Well, I had the STI,
right,
and that went out like hot butter off a shovel, and that was a hot shovel, of course.
Yeah.
And then I've got another RS Turbo Subaru that has been done up and sort of keeps this particular person feeling that he's 19 or 24 years of age.
Yeah, 4 on the floor, and let's go fast.
Let's go. And it's interesting, Mike Nichols, you had on. We shared motorcycles. We had a Honda SL350.
Yeah.
I've still got mine.
Yeah.
Don't know whether Mike's still listening. Somebody just recently offered me $8,000 for it because I kept it intact, and it's now a collector's item.
Gee, that's great. Sparksy, we could talk all night. and obviously your son's home, so you'd better go. But thank you for reminiscing tonight. I really appreciate your time.
Well, fantastic. Pass on my very best to everybody, and to those people tuning in to 3AK. I hope you're enjoying the new format. Support commercial radio. We all need all the help we can get from one end of the dial to the other. And happy 70th birthday to 3AK.
Love you, Ken Sparks.
Thank you, Gavin.
And it's 8:04. Listening to all of that, baby John Burgess, good evening.
G'day, Gavin. How you doing?
Look, I'm very well. I just put you on there at the end. I just wanted to. Might have thought you could have kept Sparksy honest there for a second.
Yeah, you mentioned someone's name that I was supposedly attuned to. I didn't recognise it at all. I don't know who that was. John Lewis, who's that?
Well, exactly. Now, look, I've got a little jingle I want to play.
Yeah.
Beautiful downtown Richmond. This is friendly 3AK presenting the Baby John Show.
Well, that's a good spot to stop our recording of the 70th anniversary of 3AK in 2001. And it was great hearing there from Ken Sparks. And we'll continue with the interview with baby John Burgess and others in the next edition. And that will probably bring us to a conclusion. So hope you're enjoying this presentation.
What to give for Mother's Day? Here's what mothers have to say.
Give us better slippers Mother's Day.
Mother's Day. See wonderful gleaming slippers in the golden gift box by Better, just $39.11.
Mother's Day. Cozy slippers cut with fur. Quilted velvets I prefer. Give us better slippers Mother's Day. Mother's Day. Satin slippers. Sweetly stitched gold thread slippers. To bewitch.
Prettiness at her feet on Mother's Day in slippers by Better from $29.11.
When you're motoring in the country or driving in town, don't let it get you down.
Just turn on the radio in your car.
Be entertained wherever you are. Get the news and the sports, the weather reports. Listen to your favorite show.
The world is at your fingertips.
No matter where you go, when you listen to your car radio.
During the past 59 minutes, you have been listening to Australian Radio Review, coming to you on 2CM, your hi-fi service. Well, I'm afraid our time is up and I'll have to say goodbye. But join me again next time when we'll be back for another edition of the show. So till then, it's cheers for now.
Smile again, radio. I miss you, Stonio, Bonio, Donio, no, radio. I miss you, Snow.
David and his men reached Ziklag the third day. Now the Amalekites had raided the Negev and Ziklag. They had attacked Ziklag and burned it, and had taken captive the women who were in it, both young and old. They killed none of them. When David and his men reached Ziklag, they found it destroyed by fire, and their wives and sons and daughters taken captive. So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. David's 2 wives had been captured, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. David was greatly distressed because the men were talking of stoning him. Each one was bitter in spirit because of his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord, his God. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, "Bring me the ephod." Abiathar brought it to him, and David inquired of the Lord,
Shall I pursue this reigning party? Will I overtake them? Pursue them. You will certainly overtake them and succeed in the rescue.
David and the 600 men with him came to the Besor valley, where some stayed behind. 200 of them were too exhausted to cross the valley, but David and the other 400 continued the pursuit. They found an Egyptian in a field and brought him to David. They gave him water to drink and food to eat, part of a cake of pressed figs and 2 cakes of raisins. He ate and was revived, for he had not eaten any food or drunk any water for 3 days and 3 nights. David asked him,
"Who do you belong to? Where do you come from?"
He said,
"I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite. My master abandoned me when I became ill 3 days ago. We raided the Negev of the Kerethites, some territory belonging to Judah, and the Negev of Caleb. And we burned Ziklag."
David asked him,
"Can you lead me down to this raiding party?"
He answered,
"Swear to me before God that you will not kill me or hand me over to my master, and I will take you down to them."
He led David down, and there they were, scattered over the countryside, eating, drinking, and reveling because of the great amount of that they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from Judah. David fought them from dusk until the evening of the next day, and none of them got away, except 400 young men who rode off on camels and fled. David recovered everything the Amalekites had taken, including his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, young or old, boy or girl, plundered or anything else they had taken. David brought everything back. He took all the flocks and herds, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock, saying,
"David."
Then came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow him and who were left behind at the Besor Valley. They came out to meet David and the men with him. As David and his men approached, he asked them how they were. But all the evil men and troublemakers among David's followers said,
"Because they did not go out with us, we will not share with them the plunder we recovered. However, each man may take his wife and children and go."
David replied,
"No, my brothers. You must not do that with what the Lord has given us. He has protected us and delivered into our hands the raiding party that came against us. Who will listen to what you say? The share of the man who will share alike."
David made this a statute and ordinance for Israel from that day to this. When David reached Ziklag, he sent some of the plunder to the elders of Judah, who were his friends, saying,
"Here's a gift for you from the plunder of the Lord's enemies."
David sent it to those who were in Bethel, to those in Aurora, Sifmoth, Eshtemoa, and Rachel, to those in the towns of the Jerahmeelites and the Kenites, to those in Hormah, Borashan, Athak, and Hebron, and to those in all the other places where he and his men had roamed.
In the 11th month of the 12th year, on the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came to me.
"Son of man, because Tyre has said of Jerusalem,
The gate to the nations is broken, and his doors have swung open to me. Now that she lies in ruins, I will prosper."
therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against you, Tyre, and I will bring many nations against you like this, casting up its waves. They will destroy the walls of Tyre and pull down her towers. I will scrape away her rubble and make her a bare rock. Out in the sea, she will become a place to spread fish nets, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. She will become plunder for the nations, and her settlements on the mainland will be ravaged by the sword. Then they will know that I am the Lord. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. From the north, I am going to bring against Tyre Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, king of kings, with horses and chariots, with horsemen and a great army. He will ravage your settlements on the mainland with the sword. He will set up siege works against you, build a ramp up to your walls, and raise his shields against you. He will direct the blows of his battering rams against your walls, and demolish your towers with his weapons. His horses will be so many that they will cover you with dust. Your walls will tremble at the noise of the war horses, wagons, and chariots when he enters your gates as men enter a city whose walls have been broken through. The hooves of his horses will trample all your streets. He will kill your people with the sword, and your strongholds will fall to the ground. They will plunder your wealth and loot your merchandise. They will break down your walls and demolish your fine houses and throw your stones, timber, and rubble into the sea. I will put an end to your noisy songs, and the music of your harps will be heard no more. I will make you a bare rock, and you will become a place to spread fish nets. You will never be rebuilt, for I, the Lord, have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord.